Muted.
I think there's some exciting things that we can do. And I really do appreciate our speakers today, all of them. Some of them from Shelby, North Carolina, made the trip over. Mitch, appreciate that very much. Some local folks, and all of you that have come from around the state. Just as a reminder, we met earlier in the year and added a couple of courses on cybersecurity. Where we really want this to go is to a full certificate program with the applicable credentials for our students to not only go into the workforce, but to really look at this as kind of a career broadening opportunity, moving on into our four-year institutions as well. But as Gene said, it's about students and preparing them. And so we've asked the speakers today. Yes, they're going to talk about the world of cybersecurity and some technical things, but it's also to give us context. We learn sometimes in a vacuum about these things, but you'll hear some speakers today that are going to be talking about some things that are adding the applicability to this information. All right. Thank you to Sneed State for helping sponsor this. Greg Randall particularly did a lot of the background scene on getting it ready, the folks at Progress Rail for their facility. We do have refreshments that will be out during the morning. Sorry, those of you tuning in on GoToMeeting, you'll have to have virtual refreshments. And so you've probably already identified where the restrooms are. Some of us are in the age range where that's important. So anyway, they're available. And so, Greg, do you have a few words you'd like to share with the group? And then we'll turn it over to Mitch as our first presenter. By the way, I handed out bios for these folks. The bios, the recordings of this GoToMeeting, and the slide presentations, we will post those to our ACCS website. And we'll have those probably early next week, as soon as we can get back and get things loaded on our website. Greg? By the way, speakers, if you would, we need you to kind of stand back here so that the camera will pick you up.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. We're honored to be a part of this, and we're honored to be able to work with other folks. And speaking of Sneed State, and I've already talked to a lot of different people from different colleges, and we just need to realize that personally that this is not a Northwest Shoals, a Sneed State, a Jeff State thing. This is a global problem. And so it's my hope that as we work through these steps today and listen to these fabulous speakers, that we will get an opportunity to really kind of hold in our skills and our focus for what we're going to work with in the cybersecurity field. So it's of utmost importance. We all understand that. So thank you for everyone for coming today, and I appreciate it. And make yourself at home, and I'm sure we're going to find this a fantastic morning. So thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, don't forget to sign in either, right?
Oh, yeah. You haven't signed in.
It's up here, so yeah.
I'll let Mitch introduce himself and go from there.
Okay, I appreciate it. Good morning. How are y'all this morning? I'm glad I have an opportunity to be here this morning and speak. The project that I'm affiliated with is NCMCO, which is right now it stands for National Consortium for Mission Critical Operations. The consortium part came about as a result of us getting a grant, and I'll get some information on that here in just a little bit. Partnerships that we created in creating the grant is kind of how I ended up here. I'll give you a little bit of background on that. The grant that we got, if you go to the next slide, I believe. The
Mitch, there's a
clicker. Okay,
sorry,
that's fine.
which button is it? It's one of them. One of those arrows. There we go.
There we go. That'll work. All right. Technology. All right. So the grant that we got is a Department of Labor TAC grant, and for the sake of sanity, I'll just call it a TAC grant. It's a Trade Assistance Adjustment something training grant. We're the lead school in the grant, and I'll show you who our partners are in just a few minutes. The consortium as a whole was awarded $23.2 million. There was $25 million available to us, and Dr. Jill Biden and Secretary Perez came to our campus to help announce this and kick it off. And when Secretary Perez was there, he said, was there anything you would have changed? And we said, yeah, we'd have got the whole $25 million if we thought about it. But the grant was awarded in October of 2013. And so as of the beginning of this month, we started year 3 in the grant. It's a 4-year grant. The 3 years are the actionable part of the grant, and then the 4th year is reporting and documentation and posting everything on the website and so forth. The focus of the grant is to develop a training program for workforce development and curriculum and certification for mission critical operations. So the question that we always get is, what are mission critical operations? So somewhere along the line, we had to create a definition of what mission critical operations is, and this is what we kind of settled on with the help of some of our subject matter experts. Basically, any operation that requires around-the-clock supervision of systems aimed at combating the evolving threat of critical infrastructure operations failure. It's a mouthful. In addition to being a mouthful, it also covers all sorts of stuff. The farther we go in the development of this project, the farther we find out that it is truly something that has its fingers on literally everything that we touch in our daily lives. And it's amazing how technology has evolved to the point where everything is integrated with each other in some way. So mission critical operations, again, this is, technology is converged in everything that we do, whether we get in the car and drive to work or drive to school, or whether we listen to the satellite radio in the car while we're driving. We check our email on our cell phones now, all that, merging together. A lot of this stuff we take for granted. It just works, right? Unless, like me, the reason I was running late this morning is the beta test GPS software I run on my phone decided to crash and wouldn't come back up. So I was depending on it to help get me here. When it didn't work, I'm sitting on the side of the road trying to figure out how to reboot my software. So any of this technology that we have become so dependent upon that we just kind of take for granted is the stuff that we can't live without. Electricity. What would you do if you flip the light switch and nothing happened? Water. What happens if you go to take a shower and there's no water there, right? Transportation. Now, a lot of times we think about some of these things becoming, absent in the case of natural disasters. But in addition to natural disasters, what happens when you just simply have equipment failures, right? I mean, stuff's man-made. It's not going to last forever. So when these things break, different things happen. Communication systems. A couple of years ago, BlackBerry RIM network went down, and half of the South Pacific couldn't get on the phone anymore. So different things happen. So all of this is where MCO lives. These are all the things that make our daily life happen. And so much of this stuff is driven by these types of facilities. They're data centers, they're hospitals, labs, banks. These are the places that they exist. Sometimes you may even know where they are, but you usually don't think about them. It's usually just a plain white building up on a hill somewhere, and you never really pay any attention to it. I'm finding out that data centers are always the computer room at the end of the hall. That's always kind of what I thought was a data center. Now I'm finding out there's data centers in our neck of the woods, and I'll show you one here in a minute. That's it at the top up there. That are bigger than some factories. Anybody recognize where that is? That's Facebook. That's about 20 minutes from our offices. Okay? If you log into Facebook, your data passes through this building. I don't care where in the world you are, it goes through this building right here. 408 Social Circle is in Rutherford County. It's about 20 minutes from our office. So what we found out is, even though these data centers are everywhere, regardless of whether it's a hospital, whether it's a data center, whether it's a school, whether it's an industry, manufacturing facility, all of these things right here are common to all of these facilities. Everybody's got air conditioning, right? Everybody's got computers. Everybody's got an electrical power center somewhere. If you're a big enough facility, you've got a substation sitting out in the yard next to the building. There's people in all these facilities, and everyone's got a phone on their desk, right? Or they got a radio on their hip, something. All of these systems are dependent, and they're really agnostic as to what the type of facility is. They're everywhere. So what we've found out is, in education, we will train you on HVAC systems, all right? This is a cooling coil. This is a compressor. This is a fan. This is a pump, and this controls temperature. But we never tell you where it's going to go, right? A lot of the systems, especially at our school, it's HVAC systems, and we think about residential. Okay? If you've ever worked in industry, HVAC for industry is a whole nother animal from what it is in residential facilities. I used to work with a guy that did air conditioning in missile silos. He said, you want to talk about a whole other animal? That's a whole other animal. So putting these things in context rather than just simply talking about the technology is kind of what we're looking at in the mission critical space. So I mentioned our partners earlier. This is our partners. Cleveland Community College is where I am, and we're in Shelby, North Carolina. And I always tell people it's the second largest Cleveland in the country, behind Ohio and Tennessee and Texas and Georgia. And, yeah. But anyway, it's Cleveland County. That's where we're from. Wake Tech is the largest school in North Carolina system. They're in Raleigh, North Carolina. They've got a number of campuses. They're a partner with us. Wake Tech, we're a round 3 grant winner in the DOL. Wake Tech was a round 2 winner. One of the things that we had to do to make a successful pitch was we had to leverage off of previous round winners. So Wake Tech was a round 2 winner, and their focus is on big data and data analytics and applying the big data to industry rather than just worrying about business and sales and that sort of thing. Nash Community College was a round 1 winner, and their focus is on emergency preparedness and disaster recovery. They have one of the premier electric lineman programs in the state. Southern Regional is the new name for what was Moultrie Technical College in Georgia. But both of Wake Tech and Nash, by the way, are in North Carolina. Moultrie is in Georgia, about an hour north of Florida. And our university partner is UNC Charlotte. UNC Charlotte is an NSA Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, and they're partners with us on the cybersecurity and the advising of that. We're also working, starting with UNC Charlotte, working with 2+2 capabilities, so that once someone gets the associate's degree, they can move into either the College of Engineering or the College of Software and Information Systems and work either the cybersecurity IT side of it or the engineering technology side. These were the original partners. Since then, we've got discussions going on with a number of other schools. Last week, I was at East Carolina University, and East Carolina has an industrial systems program there that includes logistics and distribution systems. So it was a very good conversation to get started there. So our industry partners, this is who I kind of got. This is kind of how I ended up here. 7x24 Exchange Carolinas is an early on partner with us. They helped us with the definition of what mission critical is, and they come at it from the data center space. Working with the 7x24 Carolinas chapter, ended up at 7x24 International in Orlando, which got me in touch with the 7x24 Alabama chapter, which is where I met Dave at a presentation back in the summer, and here we are. Met Dr. Grimes at that session too. So 7x24, if you're not familiar with them, 7x24 represents some of these companies. This is just a small sampling of them. These are the ones I could find the logo and make them fit. There's a couple hundred companies that are involved in this. And the way we kind of leverage the 7x24 is these are the end users. These are the people who actually own the data center, own the industrial facility, own the banking institution that has all these pieces of technology in there. And several of those, I've spoken with representatives of those companies, and they've been subject matter experts on some of our panels. Organization partners that we have started with Automation Federation, and then all these other organizations are member institutions under the umbrella of Automation Federation. ISA is the International Society of Automation. Their headquarters is in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, just outside Raleigh. IET, Institution of Engineering and Technology, their headquarters is in London. This is South Africa. So this is a global organization here. Anybody use Microsoft Windows? Okay, you've heard of it, yeah. Part of the reason that Microsoft Windows, they have a 5-year support group, and then they have extended support that goes for years 6 through 10. Part of the reason for the years 6 through 10 support is not because Microsoft wanted it that way, it's because OMAC told them to. They said, look, we put stuff out on the floor, we don't replace it every 5 years. You're going to have to give us more than 5 years of support. So OMAC's part of the reason for that. They have a subgroup called Microsoft Manufacturers Users Group, MSMUG, and that's where we have years 6 through 10 support. All right, so one of the questions that we were asked was, government agencies, do they play a role in this? You know, the public-private sector. These are some of the companies or some of the government agencies that we've been in discussions with at different points and talked with representatives about what is mission critical. And one of the questions that I always get asked when I throw this chart up here is, okay, NSA kind of makes sense. DOD kind of makes sense. Homeland Security, and the question is always, Homeland Security? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And the reason is because Homeland Security has the responsibility of the nation's critical infrastructure. It's Homeland Security. And what is the national critical infrastructure? It's all these areas right here. And so this is what makes our daily life our daily life. And what we found out is in the conversations with these folks, all of these systems talk to each other. They're all interconnected with each other. And even though the government has put them into 16 silos, they're not siloed by any stretch of the imagination. They're all interlinked. And some of them, I think, it's interesting too, as we've talked with critical infrastructure and we've looked at what this is. It's different in Canada, it's defined differently in Canada, it's defined differently in the EU. All these sectors are there, but sometimes they're merged. For example, nuclear and dams are often under energy, which kind of makes sense. But this is how our federal government splits them all up. And so, again, putting the technology and skills, whether you're an HVAC guy, whether you're an IT healthcare informatics person, whether you're automation and controls background, electronics background, which is my background, you could find a job in any one of these sectors. And that's where, you know, putting it in that context of always being up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, comes into play with mission critical. So the program that we've developed, this is the block header, and I know it's kind of small print, but basically this is the course descriptor for our associate degree program. And I'll go through it real briefly. I'm not sure exactly how the Alabama system is set up, but in North Carolina, we have 58 community colleges, and those 58 community colleges have a common library that we pull our course standards from and our course descriptions from. Now, each individual school can tailor the program to what their local needs are, but there's a core set that if you offer this program, this is offered at all your schools. So this is the technical core for the mission critical program. It is shared with the automation engineering program, the mechatronics engineering program, and applied science engineering program. So everyone has to get a course in computer applications, and everyone has to get a course in safety. What we do at Cleveland is EGR 111. That's engineering, computers, and careers. So it's using a laptop for something besides playing games on. And ISC 112 is the industrial safety. That's the one that we run. After the technical core that's common to all the programs in the cluster, then there's the actual degree core competencies. This is the degree core competencies that are unique to mission critical operations. So MCO 110 is intro to MCO. I call this my 30,000 foot view. This is the big picture of what mission critical is. Doesn't really get into one particular sector or the other. It just talks about what it means to have systems that are supposed to be up 24 hours a day. MCO 115 is MCO infrastructure, and basically the way that course is laid out, all those infrastructure sectors that we had on the previous slide, we go into each one of those sectors a little bit in detail in this course here, so that everyone gets an idea of what those sectors are and how they're interfaced with each other. And then 210 is the site operations course, and this is the course where the attempt is going to be, we have 110 and 115 are running now, 210 hasn't run yet, but the intent with 210 is to kind of create an immersive environment for folks. One of the things that our subject matter experts have said is that before we put someone in a mission critical environment, we want them to have had their feet wet at some point. We don't want to put someone raw into that environment that's never been in that environment before. So we're trying to figure out a way now where we can put a student in a simulated, a mocked up environment for that. To help with that end, we're in the process of commissioning now. We've just got the punch list knocked out. We have part of this grant, part of that $23 million was we renovated the data center on our campus. And so it's a raised floor environment now. Our campus IT is in that facility, and also the IT for all of our labs are in that space as well. The lab space that's in there, students will be allowed to be in that environment. So they'll be in a raised floor environment. They'll have computer room air conditioners in there. There's smoke detectors in there, key card access to get in and out of the room. So when we talk about working in a data center environment, they'll have been in a data center environment. We're also working on renovating our labs to make our labs more automated. Instead of having a robot sitting in this corner, a motor control trainer sitting in this corner, we want the robot to put stuff in and out of that motor control trainer. We want to interface it with the CNC machines so that students are in a live environment rather than everything being manual and isolated from each other. Intro to Automation is a required course. We actually have 2 tracks, and I'll get to that in just a second, at our school. Operations Technology is 1 track, and Information Technology is 1 track. Regardless of which track you pick, you take Intro to Automation. We take all 5 of these courses, but Intro to Automation is basically the idea behind there's a green button on everything. You push a button and something moves, something happens, and so we want to introduce folks to what that means. You get in an elevator and you push 3, what happens, right? You stick a CD in your DVD, or you stick a DVD in your PlayStation, stuff starts moving. Industrial system schematics. Schematics are the common language for all of this. So when someone rolls out a set of prints, we want to be able to tell the difference between a network line, a water line, and a wall, because it's kind of hard to run stuff when there's walls in the way. These are the prefixes that we can pick and choose to customize our program with, and it looks like it's half our catalog. And the reason is because, and we added a few to this, but the reason is because of those earlier slides, right? When you look at this thing and you want to customize this program, it has to go, there's so much you could touch in. AHR is air conditioning, ALT is alternative energy technologies, ATR is automation, BAT is building automation, blueprint, bioprocess manufacturing, blueprint reading, some of these I don't remember, BUS is business, WAT is water, and that's different from plumbing. What was interesting is when we got to talking with folks, this is low pressure systems like you would, 18-inch pipes that you're going to move water through a facility to get to, from the chiller room out to the manufacturing floor. Some of our subject matter experts said we're not talking about running 2-inch pipe for, a drain line somewhere. This is something completely different. There's networking up here, web systems, network security is what SEC is, sustainable technologies, and so forth.
Do you have civil engineering programs? You had water, but I mean...
We don't at Cleveland. I think Wake Tech has a civil engineering program. I know there are civil engineering programs in the state.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure that the civil engineering folks are the ones that use the water, though. I think it's some of the other engineering programs that use the water as part of like the HVAC systems and so forth. But there are like some hydronics stuff in that course, I think.
What about, I'm sorry,
that's fine.
Nuclear maintenance?
Nuke.
Okay.
And you see right there's nuke. Yep. Okay. We don't have a nuclear program. Actually, none of our consortium members have nuclear programs, but we do have one in the state. That's a nuclear technician. Non-destructive testing and all that stuff's in there.
Okay.
So this is what our program looks like for the IT track. This is for the 2-year degree program. It comes out to between 65 and 66 hours, depending on what your electives are. The focus of the IT track is cloud-based systems and data center operations, basically, data center IT. When we talked with the folks that are in the industry that are running these data centers, they didn't necessarily need someone that could swap a NIC out. I said that's kind of inherent. You don't have to have a degree to change a NIC out or change a hard drive out. What we need is someone that can set up an operating system. They can put a user in the network. They can configure a virtual machine through VMware or Citrix, and then they can deploy that environment out. So that's kind of where this comes from here. There's a little bit of the OT side in this though, because you've got to understand, when you put this system in and you make it go live in an environment, how does it interface with everything else that's around it? So that's where some of the MCO stuff is in here as well. Can everybody see that slide? Okay. Anybody have any questions before I move on? If anybody wants me to go back, I'll be happy to go back. If I'm talking too fast, tell me to slow down too. I get that from my students a lot. Slow down. Back up, chapter 2. This is the OT. We originally started calling this industrial systems, and some of our subject matter experts said it's all industrial systems. You need to kind of define it as operations versus information technology. So that's the way we do it in the industry. So I said, fair enough. So we call it operations technology. So this is the OT track. Into the OT side of here, there's some networking stuff in here. Someone asked me, I actually had a student want to know, why does he need to take networking basics and security concepts? And I told him, I said, because you can put an IP on that circuit breaker. And he just kind of looked at me funny, and I said, yeah, and you want to be able to secure that so that a hacker doesn't come in here and cut off the circuit breaker for the cooling towers at the nuclear plant, and we all go in the dark for the next 30 years. And he's like, point taken. So energy management, building automation systems, critical infrastructure. Now, I know we're here to talk cybersecurity, and what you don't see in either of these tracks is a cybersecurity course. And there's a long story behind that. Cybersecurity is actually on the front page of our project proposal to the Department of Labor, and cybersecurity and SCADA systems and industrial networking cybersecurity, not IT cybersecurity, is really where the focus of this grant is. And as we started looking at putting the program together, there are several other academic initiatives that I won't bore you to tears with that are going on at the same time that forced us into a 66 to 68 hour program course. Before, when this grant was started, we had the flexibility of going out to 76 hours with our associate degree program. And so they said, no, you can't do that. So there is no cybersecurity course here. Instead, cybersecurity is in all of these courses. It's integrated into the curriculum. It's not a patch. It's not an add-on tied to the side of something. Everything that we're going to talk about in these programs, and a lot of these programs, I'm not going to say they're set in their ways, but they're set in their ways, and we're having to pry into that a little bit. We're having to go back and tell folks, look, you're talking HVAC systems. Let's see, where's my HR? HVACR maintenance. This course is industrial air conditioning. That's really what this program is, okay? But we've gone back and we've talked to the instructor, and we're like, in addition to talking temperature and humidity, you also need to talk security. And he kind of looked at me funny, and he said, well, why does an air conditioning guy need to be worried about cybersecurity? Does anybody remember Target? Yeah. That's how they got in. They came in through an air conditioning contractor. Okay, so cybersecurity has got to be in all of this. So that's why there's not a cybersecurity course. Now, to be clear, there is a course that's been proposed and accepted at our system office for our system catalog. That is ICS Cybersecurity. Wake Tech is putting that program together, and they're going to incorporate it in their program. Now, we're doing IT and OT. Wake Tech is going to do a building automation track. The building automation track is going to have the ICS cybersecurity in it. Does everybody know what ICS is? Industrial Control Systems. So the ICS cybersecurity is going to focus on cyber securing operator interface panels, PLCs, drives, circuit breakers, so forth. So that will be a dedicated course. And that's one that I'm actually playing with putting in this program as well now that it's out there and it's available. The problem is, what do I drop? I'm in favor of dropping English 111, but they won't let me.
They love you for the drop the math course.
Oh yeah, students especially. I've already changed it from Calc 1 to Pre-Calc. At least, yeah, trying to get some points there. But this is the IT program and the OT program, and like I mentioned earlier, we're doing IT and OT at Cleveland. Wake Tech is going to do a building automation and control systems program. Nash is working on an emergency management disaster recovery program. Moultrie is working on an industrial, I think they're calling it industrial systems program, which is kind of a facilities maintenance track of it. So again, going back to the different infrastructures, there's different angles that everyone can take with this. It's not just, we don't have the silver bullet here. There's a different way to look at mission critical in all of these different facilities. I think Dave and I talked a little bit earlier that y'all were interested in some logistics and some transportation aspects of it. I think that's fantastic. Some of the subject matter experts that we've talked to, some of them have stars on their shoulder boards, have told us that supply chain management is one of the biggest things that the military is concerned with. We order a Cisco router from Cisco, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get here. Why? You can put it on a plane and have it here in 8 hours. What happened in 6 weeks between the time it left the vendor and the time it got here? Who else had their hands on it and has a roll of Cisco brand tape that they can seal the package back up with? So it's been kind of interesting in those discussions because there's ways that a digital footprint of a piece of equipment can be sent separately from that piece of equipment. And so I get this piece of equipment in, I get my security key from over here, and I can run a checksum back against that piece of equipment and find out if it's been tampered with. It's pretty cool. Honestly, I was always thinking that that could be done, but I didn't know anybody was really doing it until he told me, yeah, we're doing that on a regular basis. I don't know that too many students are being told that, that's something that's being done, and that's trying to secure the supply chain, making sure that these things are what they say they are. I mean, who worries? IT typically worries about keeping the hackers out once the system's up and running. But what happens if the hackers got to your equipment before you did? They've already put back doors in. One of our partners, you might have noticed ISA earlier. ISA has I don't know if you call it a division or a department that's put in with ISA. And one of the things that they're doing is they're going through and they're looking at industrial control pieces of equipment, and they're validating that those pieces of equipment are inherently cyber-secure pieces of equipment. And you can get a certification that says this piece of equipment is certified as it's designed. Now, what they don't do is certify that piece of equipment after you buy it and put it in. Because if you buy it, put it in, and put a 192.168 IP address on it, and it's public information for everybody in the world, well, hey, you broke the security on it, not the device. The device isn't the problem, your implementation of it's the problem. But the fact that there is an institution out there that's certifying pieces of hardware as being inherently secure is a pretty interesting step.
Yeah. Real quick, do you teach this as a normal semester range, or is this a compressed schedule? Or
right now, it's on schedule as a typical semester-based program. We run 16-week semesters, so it's in that program range right now. We've had a couple of discussions. I'm kind of migrating into this from our automation program, and so we experimented with some of those compressed schedules in the automation program, and just to kind of test the waters. Got good feedback from the industries that we work with on that. One of the programs, I don't think is up here in particular, and all of this, sorry if I'm rambling, Department of Labor required all of this to be distance learning enabled. So you don't have to be in Cleveland County to take these classes, and I'll touch on our telepresence capabilities there in a minute. But the compressed schedule, we actually did a hydraulics class for an industry up in the mountains. They did 12 weeks of assignments, readings, lecture materials, watching videos, taking quizzes through Blackboard. Blackboard's our LMS that we use. So they did that through Blackboard, and then for 4 weeks, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, they were on our campus in our labs in a rotating schedule. I think they sent 8 guys down two a week. They did like a week worth of labs, and then the next one did a week worth of labs, and the next one did a week worth of labs. So they had everything compressed in that time schedule. And it got good reviews back from that. It worked out well. Yes.
And this may sound stupid, but we don't have a cybersecurity yet.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
But looking at this curriculum, it looks to me like most of the classes are taught in the individual technical areas. Or do you have an IT person who's doing the cybersecurity portion for the HVAC and the electronics and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Yes. Are you training the technical people like they say people to do it? Or?
That's what we're doing. Yeah, they are taught. Our HVAC instructor teaches the HVAC courses. Our industrial systems person teaches our hydraulics courses and so forth. And what we're doing is we're doing professional development with those faculty. We also have, as part of the grant, we also have curriculum developers that are developing stuff that we can plug into those courses in a modular fashion, so that the cybersecurity aspect of it is developed by someone with a little bit of background in that field, rather than just saying, here, go for it. Right. Right. And it's still a work in progress. Like I said, we're 2 years into the grant, but the first year really was just figuring out which end was up. Our slogan for the first year was, we don't know, we're making this up as we go. We're basically a year into the actionable part of it now, and so that's some of the stuff that we're starting to address now. In the next year, hopefully we'll have a lot more traction with that. We're very fortunate in some respects. Our HVAC instructor was a career Navy guy, and he was actually a scribe in the Navy, and so he's all into encoding and encryption and stuff, so he's easy to train on that. So we got lucky there. Yeah.
To keep us from making the same mistakes,
Sure.
I'm hearing you say that you do have a couple of cybersecurity courses, but the integrated concept is working better for you, and I think that's the great way to go. But I also see the need to have some dedicated cybersecurity courses.
Sure.
So it's kind of a blending of both of those.
Right. If I'd had my way completely from the beginning of it, there would have been a dedicated cybersecurity course in here. It just would have been in that 68 to 76 hours, because we still felt that we needed to have this there. We just wanted to have somewhere to focus on the cybersecurity, and instead we decided that we would try to blend it in with everything else that's there and put it in line, kind of an as-needed, need to know basis, rather than put it out here where there's a chance that we could risk that someone wouldn't have the context to be able to put it together. So we thought it might be better to try to integrate it in there. Of course, if it doesn't work out, then we'll definitely spin up a dedicated course.
Are you going to talk about how you set it up with some stackable credentials?
I think if they're not in this slide, they're in slides on my laptop, and I can get them up.
Say one thing. I want y'all to think like that, and what are we going to do? Because these are the kind of things we want to look at the systems approach, which is what this is. But we have to do this other side too. So that's part of why we wanted to bring everybody together on the community college side and the secondary side as we start building some of these programs and re-engineering some of our work that we're doing in our programs.
Reengineering is a good word for it, because
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's what we've had to do. Yeah, that's what we've had to do, because these programs, before the HVAC program, this would have been your gen ed classes, your English and your math, and then everything else would have been an AHR prefix to it. You go to the electronics program, there's your gen ed stuff, and then everything's ELN and ELC. To see these prefixes in the same program, the people at our system office said, "What are you, nuts?" And we're like, "No, this is life." My background is electronics and automation control systems, and I got out on the plant floor one day. I worked for a control systems integrator. That's my background before I was in the teaching side of things. We were an OEM, turnkey control systems integrator, so I've done everything from running conduit and full wire to write PLC code. And one of the first projects I was responsible for, the first thing I had to do was calculate head pressure for a hydraulic system so I could get water to the top of the machine that was actually going to run through the water system. I'd never done that before in my life. So the crash course in mechanical engineering standing on the plant floor. So all of this stuff combines in real life. Yeah?
Do you integrate this into like office administration and move in and refund into those classes also, or is it totally just the stock? I can't read it. In EGR 111, the Engineering, Computers, and Careers class, we use Microsoft Office as the tool that helps us document and do our calculations for everything else. Word's our documentation point. Excel is our math engine, and PowerPoint's how we convince the board members we need more money.
That would be our CIS 146, I'm assuming.
Or CPT 103.
A true,
Okay.
true application.
Yeah. Now, let's see if I can go back. The IT course doesn't have EGR 111. It has CIS 110, which is Intro to Computers. And I've laughed for years that that's misnamed. It's Intro to Office. That's 3 weeks of mouse, keyboard, and monitor, and 13 weeks of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access. But that's where the business side of it comes into play. There's also.
We also think about creating a intro type course with this focus, as opposed to just the general practitioner.
There it is. There's the element right there. Intro to Systems Business Concepts. It's on the IT side. The CTS 115 right here. I don't teach that one, so I don't know what I was in the details of that one. But yeah, that's on the IT side. Yep, you're welcome.
This is good. It's good stuff.
Good deal. So there's the tag cloud from our proposal that we put into DOL. And cybersecurity, operations, and mitigate were, I guess, kind of the big things. Executive Order 13636 is where we started with. This was the order from President Obama that said we need to secure our critical infrastructure and develop a workforce to do that. From that, the charge was given to NIST. NIST has developed the Cybersecurity Framework. The Cybersecurity Framework looks at cybersecurity throughout all the critical infrastructure sectors. And one of the pieces of existing industry documentation that NIST leveraged was what is now IEC 62443, which is the ICS cybersecurity standard, which developed from ISA 99. ISA 99, of course, came from ISA, who's a partner with us in this group. So they've been involved from the way back when on securing control systems. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. There's our website. You know, I don't remember what's on the next slide here. I think this is just kind of end matter. NCMCO.us is our website. NCMCO.com was taken. It's a really cool, gaudy hobby website. But we figured this is us. We're in the U.S., so that works, right? So NCMCO.us is the website. There's information in there. That was a screenshot of an earlier. Our nav bar has actually got a couple other things added to it now. There's our contact information. I'm the operations guy. Jonathan is our IT guy. Jonathan's background is in healthcare data centers, and so he's the IT side of this thing, the virtual machines, VMware, all that stuff. And then I make the pumps and the lights come on. Anybody have any questions?
One of the things that they do there is they rely heavily upon stackable credentials, short certificates, degree programs, and all of that, and we have that on the other set of slides that you had. And so again, we'll be posting all of these out there on the web. Good information. Yeah.
I'm going to see. Yep, I don't have any more. There's also 2 credentials that we're developing. Is anybody familiar with CompTIA? A+, Net+, all that stuff. CompTIA is working with us as a contractor, and we're developing Certified Mission Critical Operator, CMCO, credential. It's being developed the same way that A+ and Net+ is being developed. In fact, I think it's the same development team that's doing it. Recruiting subject matter experts in and then creating this exam. That exam is currently in beta now. If you'll go to our website, I mentioned earlier, our nav bar is changed. There's an item on the nav bar now, a tab that says certifications. If you'll go to the website and click on certifications, there's information on there. Does anybody know where a Pearson VUE testing center is? Some of your schools are probably Pearson VUE. The test will be delivered through Pearson VUE, and if you're interested, I can get you a coupon so you can take it for free. But the test will go through the end of the month. It's a beta test right now. What we're doing is we're testing the test, and we're also developing what the cut score is going to be. So if you're interested in taking the test, go to the website.
Can we get one for each school?
What's that?
A coupon.
Coupon. The way the system is set up. There's actually a coupon per user.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I can. If they'll get in touch with me, I'll give them a coupon for it because we're looking for folks to take it.
You just answered my question. It was about certification.
Okay. Well, the CMCO is the first certification. There's also one that we're developing with ISA, which is Certified Mission Critical Professional, and it's along the same lines as the CCST and their CAP that they've developed. If you're familiar with Professional Engineer PE, the Control Systems Engineer PE is also housed under ISA, and so it's the same group that's developed those certifications that are developing the CMCP. The aim for the CMCO is at someone with a 1-year level of training and background. So most of that is identify and recall. That's a chiller, that's a data center or switch, that's a hub, that's a computer room air conditioner, that kind of thing. The CMCP is more applications based. Okay, we'll give you a scenario, and depending on what that scenario is, what happens when such and such event takes place? How do you respond to it? So one's kind of qualitative, one's kind of quantitative. They're not prerequisites to each other, but if you've got both of them on your resume, that's a good deal. Subject matter experts have asked that for the CMCP, someone have 4 to 6 months of hands-on experience somewhere, boots on the ground experience. And kind of the task that we gave the subject matter experts, these are both completely industry developed. These aren't, well, we paid for the development, but we didn't write the questions. Kind of the task that we gave the folks with the CMCP was if someone sits in front of you for an interview and they have CMCP on their resume, you can skip the first 20 questions of your interview. It says, do you know what this environment is? You can get right to the heart of the matter for your facility because you already know they speak mission critical. they've passed the industry certification.
How close are your degree program mount to the CMCO or the CMCP certification?
Independently, CompTIA and ISA did job task analysis for the mission critical field. There was a few subject matter experts common to both panels, just so that we had some coherence there. But we had representatives from all of those 16 sectors on the panels, and they were developed independently. Other than the couple of people that overlapped it, the domains that they came up with for those certifications are what we developed this program off of. So the program's mapped directly off of those domains. We've not used questions that are on the certification, obviously in the course material, but the domains themselves are mapped over. Yep. Yes.
Mitch, I think you and I talked about this when you are for the 7x24. What we're saying is that the line is becoming even more blurred than ever in the context of cybersecurity. Most basic scientists are trained to do their work in really a threat-free clinical environment. And so at some point you have to inject an element of threat to determine, A, whether you can harden it, your completed product, or whether, no matter how hardened it is, the weak link will always be human element. Mitch mentioned hardened. I mean, and Walmart is a client of ours. Work for Walmart and don't work for Target. We go through the same drill with Walmart. Is that training people, and this really goes to this, but training people to think like penetration rate, think like an attacker, is oftentimes very difficult for people who are really strongly versed in the science.
Yeah.
And so, you ask the question, do you have a course that teaches people to think like bad guys? You know, do you try to add an adjunct portion onto that? I don't know. But what I have found since retiring from the community and joining academia is the venue that gives us the most bang for the buck is the practical exercise. Yeah. The tabletop exercise that takes people to grow up from that basic science, but albeit a clinical environment. And they're even accustomed to wearing, the hairnets and the white suits. And then, in a tabletop exercise, they are asked to back up and ask yourself the question that HVAC contractor Target should have asked themselves. Or even more so, the credentialing party within Target gave them those credentials to access the main. Why? The two greatest threats to operational security in any environment, whether it's cyber or not, are always going to be having inconvenience. If I'm going to try to penetrate your secure net, I'm going to play on your habits and your convenience. And the best way to inject that, I would submit as a practical exercise environment.
I have a question along that line. You said 4 to 6 months experience for that certification. Can that be done within our system of having a co-op class?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because that would get them into that work environment for that very purpose.
Yeah. Now this is a suggested sequence, but in the course sequencing in our catalog for operations, for example, BAT 251 is actually it's in here as a suggested course, but that course is actually in a pick list. And that pick list has what we call now work-based learning courses in there, which we used to call co-op learning. In the suggested sequence, they didn't want us to put work-based learning in here because what we've got is kind of like you work for Walmart, you don't work for Target. We've got a lot of students that actually work in data centers, and their NDAs as part of their employment won't let them co-op at another facility. And you can't co-op where you work. That's double dipping. So we had to put a course in here for students to be able to take without jeopardizing that work-based learning part. But yeah, there's actually and I believe it may be listed. Yeah, on this one he's just got it listed as elective. But under the elective bullet is the same thing on the IT. So they can actually co-op somewhere and get that. What we did was we told them, subject matter experts actually came back and said they wanted 6 months, and we said, well, it's a 16-week semester, which is 4 months, and they said, okay, 4 to 6 months. And so if they do 1 semester of work-based learning, then that gets them in. So it can be built into this. Yes.
The only thing that I can see that I might suggest think about adding here to the web structure would be something in penetration testing, something in state of the
Right.
But, you know, and that probably is very late in the curriculum development. Hopefully they've already had a work study or a co-op opportunity. The downside of the co-op is you really got to do quality control management. More often than not, these co-op students get doing nothing but carrying coffee, making coffee and making coffee, which I have great issues with.
Oh, I understand. We work on that hard.
But, you know, when you come into a government agency for a co-op, they're not going to do anything to you, at least interim.
Sure.
And so industry is kind of flipped into that same mode.
Exactly. The site operations, the building automation, and the field bus course have the SCADA elements built into it, along with some of that in there as well. On the IT side, I'm not sure if it got into here. I know the SEC 110 is a security class, but we also have a network security program, and there's a certified ethical hacking courses in that program as well. And so one of the things that we talk to some of these students, because some of these courses are shared with these other programs, we tell students you have to declare a primary major in order for you to work toward graduation, but you can have as many secondary majors as you want. And we tell students that if you take a class in this program here that's also in that other program that you're interested in for a little deeper dive, you know, run them side by side with each other. You can minor, if you will. We don't really minor, you double major, but you can take that security program and you could add ethical hacking to that. We're a Cisco Academy, so some of the NET 125, that's the first course in the Cisco Academy to take you to your CCNA. So that's kind of built in here as well.
Mitch, I'd let you talk all day, but
no, you don't want me to talk all day. But yeah, I understand.
Schedule a little bit.
Yeah, I understand.
So, any final questions for Mitch? I want to give the other gentleman a chance to speak.
Absolutely.
Mitch, awesome.
Thank you.
Y'all, let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in.
Good.
Absolutely.
5 minutes now.
That's good stuff. You answered some good questions. Well, I agree. You need to make us a little bit of focus on some things. Yes, we got.
While you're back here sleeping.
Oh, yeah. So your calendar number.
It just like sleep quick. There you go.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Our electrical systems guy is also a crypto guy. The guy who's teaching our industrial systems program just for the heck of it, and as a hobby, he works on some masters in security. So we're very lucky. Okay.
But we were running paper tape, all the code on our card. Right. That's how old that was.
Okay.
All right. Computer finds the bigger in this room. Anyway.
Russ left, but we're running. I mean, he's like, well, I know where it was.
They put me up with, white tape off. It actually blew the strip
Alan can't tell me. I told him, you can't tell me or you don't remember. He goes,
we were also I didn't know that because we own a telephone and I can but anyway, we had a lot of folks.
you know where Charlotte is at? 45 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay. If you're on 85, you come out of Charlotte, and you're going to go through the corner of Cleveland County before you get to South Carolina. I know exactly. Kings Mountain, that's right on 85. Kings Mountain is where ACCS data center is. We're just upstate here.
Yeah, I just got back from the trip. Yeah, right by there. Good, I know where it is. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. We can wrote that out company time. Are you ready, sir? Right, good. You take as much time as you need. We'll work the schedule accordingly. And
I think I need no more than 30 minutes.
Okay,
I'll be
that's,
okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Oops, it's easy.
I think the wrong slide.
He'll get it. I'll let Randy do that. And that's your slide advance.
Okay.
Right and left.
No.
And it's got a pointer, of course. If you want it.
That's good. I'm going to need that.
As soon as Randy gets it, we'll get the.
So what's the range of the camera? Up to here?
Yeah, it'll catch this sign right here.
Oh, okay.
So you're good right there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we're looking on right now. We can kind of exist in this hallowed bubble. Everything just
Okay.
But I remember when we were setting it up, we had, as long as you stay in front of the camera, you're okay.
Okay.
Oh, is that the wrong guy? Because I numbered 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 3.
Okay.
Good program. And then I jumped to the wrong one. Which one are you?
You guys do the in-service training for those folks because they're going to need to be able to teach it in real time. This is one of those important that really does need
and it leverages VMware back in.
Okay.
So having a different wiring in place, it creates pod. It creates virtual networks in there.
Randy, are we ready? All right. One of the partnerships that we're very interested in is with Jacksonville State University. So we're glad to have, and I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry, Guillermo Francia.
Very good.
Oh, Dr. Guillermo Francia, Francia. Excuse me, was referred to me, and so we're excited to have them speak to us as well. Because yes, we want our folks trained, educated to go into the workforce, but we also want them to be lifelong learners, especially in the field of computer science that's ever changing. So we want them to get into that mindset. And our other two folks that are going to be speaking to us as well from the four-year university status. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Dr. Francia.
Thank you so much. I'm Guillermo Francia. I'm the director for the Center for Information Security and Assurance at Jacksonville State University, and we had received our designation as a Center of Excellence CAE in 2009 and has been redesignated just last year. What I'm going to talk about today is a curriculum development opportunities that will benefit not only the program in your schools, but that it's going to benefit also our students. The other thing that I'll be talking about is the opportunity for professional development for your instructors. The project is actually a capacity building project that was funded by NSF just this year in September, and it is a joint program by JSU and Snead State Community College. It's a 3-year project that goes all the way to 2018, and essentially the project, the main theme of the project is curriculum development and professional development for instructors. It's part of the Cyber Core program, the Scholarship for Service program by NSF, and a sub-program of that program by NSF is actually this capacity building. The project objectives of the project is to design and implement control system curriculum modules. We're going to be developing curriculum modules, and we'll be essentially handing it out to instructors so that instructors could use it in their own academic setting, and we're going to be asking instructors to actually help us develop or enhance those modules, and then come up probably with new ones. And we're going to be offering a 2-day faculty development workshop every summer for the next 3 summers, 2016, 2017, and 2018, with a follow-up 1-day symposium. So instructors will come back, or participants will come back in the fall and present their findings and how they enhanced modules, whether they came up with new curriculum modules that could enhance or expand the knowledge base. We're going to provide the cost-effective resources to enable teachers to develop content, pedagogical knowledge, and skills on cyber and control system security. This essentially we would be giving its participants a control system toolkit. It's going to be a software and hardware package, and we'll be giving it out to instructors or participants that they could use in their own classroom. We're going to evaluate teaching and learning effectiveness in the control system curriculum. We're going to devise tools to facilitate the sharing of teaching expertise in curriculum modules, essentially having a repository of the knowledge base and curriculum materials in a central location, so it could be shared nationwide. And finally, design and implement a virtual and distributed control system testbed for cybersecurity competition and experimentations. That's another objective that we want to do, is to actually give students more hands-on exercises for control system security. The timeline. Essentially, what I'm doing now is kicking it off, and you'll be the first group who's going to hear about this opportunity, and we're going to be accepting applications until January 31st of 2016. We're going to be notifying all applicants by February, and the workshop dates is going to be 2-day, a Thursday and a Friday. That will be June 23 and 24, 2016, and the follow-up symposium will happen sometime in the fall. The application process, you need to complete that application packet that consists of an application form. I'll tell you later on where you could download the application form. you need a department head letter of support and a statement of interest, essentially telling how you would be using those modules, whether they'll tell us your experiences in information security or cybersecurity curriculum, and then you have to make a commitment to actually adopt those modules in your classes and participate in the evaluation process. You could download the materials at this site, that's www.jsu at MCIS CISA IR resources, and submit your application packet to postal mail, or you could email it to that email address. Now, this is the main selling point. Each participant will be provided with a really good professional development opportunity, right? They'll be given, and they could keep it, the control system security toolkit. You could bring it home, bring it to your classroom, and play with it, do whatever you want to do with it. That's a $650 toolkit that is made up of complete hardware control system, and the control system has got a PLC and a router, and the PLC runs on two major protocols, the Modbus and the DNP3 protocol, and each participant will be given a $1,000 stipend. The $1,000 stipend is going to be disbursed in 3 increments and 3 installments, and I'll tell you later on what those installment process is going to be. They'll be provided a $430 travel allowance, so you just have to claim your travel expense, going to a hotel, you know, and your mileage. If you fly, you'll be given that money. You'll be provided the packet of pedagogical materials. Well, once you finish the workshop, you take home all those pedagogical materials, and you'll be also provided with the applicable continuing education units. There's some constraints here. The workshop is only available for 4-year and 2-year college instructors. Okay? Participants needs to adopt. Make sure they're committed to adopt those materials in their classes, and be committed to perform some project evaluation activities. They need to come back to JSU in October to participate in a symposium to present, you know, whatever findings that they have gotten, and also if they have new modules that they developed, present it to the group, and finally submit a final report. It's limited to 10 participants each year, so we got a 3-year program here. So each summer we're going to be taking 10% participants, and what we want to do here is in every workshop, we'd like to disperse it as much as possible. So most likely we won't be taking more than 1 from each school. Okay? Stipend is disbursed in 3 installments. You'll get the $1,000.
How are you going to determine those 10 participants?
We have a committee that will actually evaluate each one of those applicants, and then we'll rank them. We have actually a ranking process. We have a rubric that we have developed, and essentially we're going to rank each participant. Top 10 will be taken in, and then the others will be put in a pool for next year's application pool. Okay. A stipend is disbursed in 3 installments. We'll be giving you the first installment when you come to the workshop, and then the second installment will be given when you come to the symposium, and the third installment will be given to you when you submit your final report. So the $1,000 is going to be broken into 3 installments. Okay, I'd like to talk more about what we do at JSU. At JSU, we actually have a critical infrastructure laboratory. We have this one since 2010, and essentially what we have here is a collection of different kinds of PLCs. that's running on different protocols. We have here a collection of most of the industrial control protocols. We have BNP3, we have Profibus, we got Modbus TCP, we got Ethernet IP. We have most of the PLCs out there coming from Allen Bradley. We got Siemens, we got GE, and we even have a variable speed motor out there. When we designed this one, it is the time when the Stuxnet virus came out. And you will remember that the Stuxnet virus essentially attacked those variable speed motors of the centrifuge at those nuclear facilities in Iran. And we have that thing out there, that variable speed motor is out there. So we have this being designed in such a way that we could actually expand this thing more. When we have new PLCs, we have there a backplane. We could actually get a new PLC with a new protocol and just insert that new card out in the control logics backplane that we have there. We got a new controls. We got a new PLC in place. We started this one. When we designed this one, it's a water distribution facility. It mimics a water distribution facility. So what we have here is a central system, and we got their RTUs, remote terminal units. And those RTUs are actually running on different wireless protocols. We got 900 megahertz radio. That thing is running on broadband. That thing is controlled using a cell phone. And that thing there is a 900 megahertz radio. And we got another one of that. It's not pictured here. It's running on 802.11. Okay. We started putting up our own control toolkit. They're actually so big, so huge, and that we started with those huge and not good looking toolkits, and we started trimming it down. Finally, we got it down to something like a lunchbox, and that's the thing we're going to be giving out to participants in the summer. So what do we do at JSU with this facility? We got a continuous security monitoring of industrial control system. This was funded by the Department of Defense. We're actually active on that thing right now. We're doing real-time analytics, aggregating data from multiple sources, from log files, from threat intelligence, from system logs, and so on. We do that data collection and aggregation of security data. And together with that one, we're putting up a visualization scheme so operators could actually be looking at a visualization of what's happening in the system in real time. So if that control system gets attacked, those operators could easily see it. So we're doing also proactive cyber defense with deep packet inspection and aggregating that with threat intelligence. And of course, we're doing control system security curriculum development. That's the thing I just talked about. Any questions? I'm open to questions.
It's pretty exciting. I just got there.
Yeah.
Are you looking at transfer students, 2+2 curriculum students, or is this something that you do in the freshman and we're actually most of the community colleges here are actually feeding us with their 2-year graduates, and we have plenty of those, and we actually bring them up to a BS degree.
So can you name some of the lab exercises that you do?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I haven't thought about that. But we actually have started working on some modules on penetration testing, vulnerability analysis, system reconnaissance, firewall settings, ladder logic programming, HMI development. and of course, when we finalize this one by summer, probably we'll have more.
I was curious about the planning part or the learning part in June and the commitment to adopt the curriculum and then having your results by October. How does that?
Well, we're thinking of, because some of you are actually have the cybersecurity courses in place already, so what you could do is actually bring that to your classes and essentially tell us whether you have actually adopted those materials. And those materials could actually be part of what you're actually been doing, like penetration testing or vulnerability analysis or system reconnaissance.
About getting some results.
And yeah, and then by let's see, semester starts sometime in late August, and then by September we probably have a good indication on probably put out a survey out there and ask the students, okay, maybe you have completed 1 or 2 projects already by that time. Yeah, you could actually come up with some evaluation. Probably will give most likely will give you the evaluation worksheet that you could use, a survey questionnaire that you could give to your students, and then they fill it up and bring it to us. And maybe not only that, but in October you actually are going to be coming up. It's not necessary that you have to come up, but probably you could come up with some more modules that you could introduce to the group and say, hey, this is a good module that we could adopt. Let's develop this one. And maybe you'll find something on those modules. Maybe this is not a good way to do it. Let's fix it. You could tell that to the group during the symposium. It's a continuous improvement process. Okay.
We just did get the cybersecurity course put in the catalog here back earlier in the year. So is anybody teaching those courses yet?
We are.
Okay, great.
We have the cybersecurity track.
Okay.
With the computer science technology group.
Okay. We're going to need, as this develops, we're going to need to do some standardized plans of instruction for these so that it'll be across the system. But this is exciting because these folks will be the forerunners to get this all put together.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have associate in our
Where's that?
cabinet.
Okay. Okay.
We had a short hit there already, but we haven't.
You said that the letterhead, the applicants for that program needed to have department chair letterhead. Would it enhance in any way if it had an endorsement from the systems office?
No, the thing we're going to be looking at is the endorsement from the department head. Okay. Because we're thinking if you're going to be adopting this material in your courses, might as well have the blessing of the department head. Because this is a very, very important thing. Yeah.
We try to have a standardized process throughout the system. So usually what one department chair implements in their program, we like to know what's going on. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, probably it'll be more beneficial if it'll be if it's coming from the dean or someone above. We
want to facilitate. We don't want to.
They'll be getting some encouragement.
Okay. Yeah.
This is good stuff.
Any more?
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
We need to take a break, or are we ready to turn it over to someone else?
We're grown-ups if you need to take a break. All right. A lot of good stuff out there. We've actually caught up on our timeline, so that's good. Dr. Tommy Morris will be speaking with us. You do have the bio in front of you there. And I wouldn't say he's got a checkered past, but he did come from across the border to us, but we're glad to have him over here anyway. So
Right.
I'll turn it over to you,
We
sir.
say welcome to Alabama.
That's right.
Thank you. Just so you know, I haven't declared yet.
You better hurry up.
I've been told I have to, but I came from Texas A&M and taught at Mississippi State, so I'm having trouble declaring for some other SEC school.
University of Arkansas.
The title of my talk is really wrong. I just copied a couple of another slide deck and changed from there. So I'm the director of the Center for Cybersecurity Research and Education. So that was another talk. I'm going to talk about what is that center. I'm going to give you a brief overview of that. Then I'm going to talk about something called the Center of Academic Excellence for two-year program. Introduce you to that. Talk about some helpful resources that you might use for curriculum development in cybersecurity, and a little bit about some professional certificate programs that a lot of the students are pursuing. And then there's a little bit on a program called Gen Cyber, which is a camp program, summer camp program. And then I want to encourage matriculation into four-year universities, especially into UAH. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what the students might expect at the fourth year once they transfer over, and then talk about the Scholarship for Service program, which is a scholarship that your students, when they're transferring, can pursue. Little bit about myself. I have a PhD from Southern Methodist University. I used to work at Texas Instruments for 17 years, and while there, I pursued my graduate degrees. When I was at TI, I did chip design and verification, so not cybersecurity, but along the way, well, just one day, right when I started my PhD, hadn't picked a topic yet, I walked into work and 300 of 331 of my group got laid off and the job sent to India. So I decided cyber might be a good program to study because the jobs can't be shipped to India. Jobs actually started coming back after that, which is a good thing, but that sort of influenced my decision on cybersecurity. So I did a little bit of a career switch. I then worked at Mississippi State for 7 years. When I left, I was director of their Critical Infrastructure Protection Center and associate director of the center above that, which is at Distributed Analytics, and I led all the research. And I want to mention, David asked me to talk about how to set up a cybersecurity curriculum. I'm really a researcher. I when at Mississippi State, I was pretty much pure research. I only have ever taught one class a semester, so I do teach. But you know, the stuff that I'm going to talk about is all just stuff that I've kind of learned through osmosis over the years, interfacing with other folks, and I tried to put it together into a talk for you. And then finally, I'm in the electrical and computer engineering department at both. I was in Mississippi State in that department, now at UAH. I just moved to Alabama, as I mentioned, in July. So new to UAH, new to Alabama. The CCRE is a brand new Center for Cybersecurity Research and Education at UAH. We have basically three goals: cybersecurity research, develop cybersecurity, first-class cybersecurity education. I think we already have that, so I want to change that mission to maintain. And then I love to tell, when I'm going out and getting grants, which is a big part of my job, I always remind them when they're given the grant, they're actually paying to develop a pipeline of trained scientists and engineers to come back to them. And that's why we want to work with them, is to bring that research experience goes right back into the classroom. And it also, you know, we hire grad students, and those guys a lot of times end up working for the people that sponsor our grants. The education part is most relevant here. As one of the cybersecurity missions is we are a Center of Academic Excellence in Information Assurance Education, and that certification requires a center director who will oversee that cybersecurity education program. So that is one of my roles. And as part of that, the primary role in that cybersecurity education, I oversee the Master of Science in Cybersecurity. But I also oversee the entire certification and the cybersecurity courses at UAH. I mentioned UAH is a NSA DHS Center for Academic Excellence in Information Assurance Cyber Defense. That's the program I'm actually going to talk about at the 2-year level. We also have a Center of Academic Excellence in Research, and then I'll talk more, but we are also an NSF Cyber Corps Scholarship for Service School. In Alabama, there's 3 of those. They're UAH, Auburn, and USA, University of South Alabama. And I'll detail out what that scholarship is at the end of this slide deck. Our center has quite a few faculty affiliated with it, so and we do a whole breadth of different cybersecurity research. So we have expertise across a lot of different parts of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is at Mississippi State. We used to tell people it's not a degree. It's a problem kind of within a domain. So, for instance, computers have a cybersecurity problem. Industrial control systems have a cybersecurity program. And so, you know, the mission critical operations thing, I really liked actually that you infuse cybersecurity all through the degree plan because it is something that needs to be attached everywhere. It comes up over and over and over again. And so that's kind of represented in the breadth of things that our faculty are capable of doing. It's all over the place. And when we go out, I don't know what you know about Huntsville. Huntsville has Redstone Arsenal. It's the second largest R&D facility in the DoD. You know, in one place, there's $100 billion worth of DoD-sponsored research and development going through Redstone Arsenal right there in Huntsville. And then we have, because of that, there's the second largest research park in the country with the who's who of every DoD contractor. But when we go out and try to sell the research as a service to those folks, we don't go in with just one type of research. We have to have a portfolio because everybody needs something different. And so, you know, we do. Moving on to the educational side, there is a program called, the acronym up there, they constantly refer to it, NSA does, CAE2Y. And that is a Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education for 2-year schools. And what that is it's primarily NSA. NSA and DHS have partnered up, but the Information Assurance Directorate and the National Security Agency is very, very interested in cybersecurity education and research. And so they've been pushing for, I would say, 10+ years on having universities and 2-year programs map their cybersecurity curriculum to a set of knowledge units. And there's a number of other requirements, but you basically, if you're starting a cybersecurity program, a great place to go is to this CAE2Y requirement document. If you were going to try to become one of these, they actually tell you, here's all the stuff you've got to teach. And so it's a resource for a list of knowledge units to put into different classes. They don't tell you, put these knowledge units in this class and these into this class. They just give you a list, and you're going to map your curriculum to that. That gives you the flexibility to organize it based on the competency of your faculty or based on how it fits into your degree program. So, but it does tell you what you need to teach and get kind of organizes your program. There's quite a few requirements. I mentioned earlier that my center, I'm over the cybersecurity for the university. That comes from the same requirement at the 4-year. You have to create a cybersecurity center. They call it a cyber defense center. Has to be created at your community college. I don't know if you could do that at a system level and then work with multiple colleges. I don't actually think so. I think it would be by community college.
Yeah.
It can be but it can be a physical or virtual center. There needs to be a person actually overseeing that. And that person's going to be designated as over that CA2Y certification. You have to develop a cyber defense program of study. So this is not one class, but more like what Calhoun's doing with a associate degree program related to cybersecurity. There's a whole list of other things. Skipping student development, you have to have cyber defense faculty. You've got to go out and find those. Maybe they're in your community working in IT departments or other departments within some of your local companies, or maybe you have to bring them in. And then finally, the last thing that you have to do is there's a spreadsheet that comes from the website on the previous slide where you actually fill out, this is course, in my parlance, CPE 549, and here's a list of knowledge units that are in that course. Actually, it goes the other way. You take the list of knowledge units, and in the next column you put CPE 549, the name of the course that's covering that. And you have to cover all of the core units, and then there are optional units as well that you can cover as well.
Real quick, I'm sorry, sir. How many actual courses cover that?
At UAH, about 3 courses.
Oh, okay.
So it's not.
Okay.
Can I just ask a quick question? Have we had any of our colleges look into this?
No.
Anybody doing it yet?
We're CA2Y.
I thought so. Okay. And we've had others that are
Just come on.
I think you told me that. Yeah, I want to make sure. Right. Okay. Good.
So the knowledge units. This is just the list of the core units, the titles of the core unit categories, I guess you'd say. And then under each one of these, I just want to give you a preview of what it's like. It is not a detailed. This knowledge unit list does not teach you what these topics are. You're expected to know what data analysis and its components are. You'll give you a list of components, but just a list. It's just 2 or 3 words each. And then there are a few sentences with each knowledge unit of what the student's going to get out of that group, that area, if you will. But you don't get the details from NSA BHS. You actually have to go out, either your faculty are already trained in it, or you go to some other resource. So, in the class I'm teaching right now, I'm developing redeveloping a class, and where I started, UAH had, before I joined, mapped the knowledge units, and I just sorted that Excel spreadsheet that I told you about, found all the ones that are my class, and I'm on the fly developing that class, just going, I try to put it in a logical order and going through the class. But for each time I come to a new chapter, I have to go out and study. Even though I have a PhD, I only know really narrow focus, actually. I have to go out and study this stuff, put together a presentation, or the classroom experience for each one. But I highly encourage that as a starting place, because even if you don't, CAE2Y is a starting point, because even if you don't immediately have CAE2Y, it may be a goal that you want to work toward over time. And I don't think NSA expects you to get your CAE2Y before the first day you ever teach a cyber course. I think it's something you're going to work toward. And where do I point it? Back over here? Okay. There we go. And then I mentioned earlier there are optional data units. The and those, I didn't mention before, you have to have a certificate program as part of your CAE2Y, and you can have these optional data units that map to other certificate programs as well, or target individual job functions. And there's a whole bunch of those to give you a lot of different flexibility in where you want to go with your program. So I didn't list them out. There are a few helpful websites related to the CAE2Y and the other CAE. There's an organization called the National Cyber Watch Center, and they have a 47-page document that is a guide to applying for the program. You get a lot more detail out of that guide than you get out of the NSA website, which is very, sparse. And then there's a CAE community that is a website developed by CAE participating schools, and it has more information and some forums and things like that. You need, for the forums, to get a login, so you have to go through a registration process. But that will connect you with some other CAE schools. Another helpful thing for getting into CAE is to link up with another CAE school. We saw earlier the capacity building grant that was Jackson State and Sneed State together. Those capacity building grants, they highly encourage that kind of link up. And they highly encourage linking up with schools that actually aren't already certified to help bring their capacity up. So linking up with other schools is a good way to get started. And they should share materials, most likely. Another resource is the NICE framework. And there's a mapping of these knowledge units to the NICE framework. The NICE framework is actually not curriculum. It's telling you what are all the jobs in cybersecurity, giving you job titles and descriptions of those jobs, and then you can go through that diagram on the right. It's actually clickable on the website, and you can click down and look at jobs and their descriptions, and then back on the CAE website, there's a link for a NICE to CAE knowledge unit mapping, so that you could say, okay, I've got Google coming in to build a data center in my county, and I want to have a program for them, and Google's talking about, XYZ job function. I can go to NICE, then I can go back to that, look at that job function, have it defined for me. I'm always embarrassed to ask questions in a meeting, or sometimes. You can go offline, learn about that job, and then go back to the mapping and see what are the components educationally, knowledge units that student's going to need, and help you build a specialized curriculum for that job.
Real quick question about the curriculum for the job and all of that. Mm-hmm. When industry looks at a graduate from our program, are they going to be looking for courses that have a specific kind of prefix on it? For example, right now we use CIS, Computer Information Systems. Would they be looking for something like?
I think they'd be more looking at the titles of your courses, because the curriculum he was putting up there, he had 30 prefixes. Yeah. Nobody knows what any of those mean. He had to stand up there and explain them to us. And, at MSU, all our prefixes were ECE for what I taught. Now they're CPE, and that doesn't. They both have meanings. They're acronyms, but I don't think anybody in industry recognize them. Okay. Yeah. But the course names do. They're obviously different from university to university, but there is there'd be a Venn diagram that's a fair amount of overlap. And so what I see students doing resume-wise is certificate, listing out the certificates, and listing out the courses that they think are valuable by name, not necessarily by that prefix. Right, that's the certificate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you use the word certificate, that means something different to us.
Okay.
Credential is what you're speaking.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, because my students, I only have the credentials. It's my bachelor's, master's, and PhD. But when I'm talking, and I'm going to go into some credential stuff in a second, but to my students, they're always talking certs. That's the word they use.
Okay.
You have Network Plus, you have Security Plus, and Certified Ethical Hacker, and so that's what they call them. So I call them certificates. So anyway, the NICE framework is a nice way to, if you want to target a particular job, you can kind of go through that mapping to find what you need to teach for that field. Now going into certificate programs, aka credentials, a lot of students are simultaneously at UAH going through our Master of Science Cybersecurity or our undergrad programs. They're simultaneously getting these certifications. And there's a lot of different ones out there, but the common ones that, just from my students that I hear are, Security Plus, Network Plus, Security Essentials, Computer Examiner. Those are kind of entry-level certificates. I bring these up because, A, they're a valuable resource to go out and look at what are the students being tested for to get these things, and then more knowledge units. Okay, if they're being tested for this stuff, then I'm going to teach them this stuff, because these are the things they need to get the job. Actually, a lot of the jobs that government side require thou shalt have CISSP or thou shalt have Security Plus, depending on the job that they're applying for. And that's pushing the students to get these third-party certificates. And so a real value to the students is to develop a security curriculum that after they go through it, they can take and pass one of these tests. Because a lot of them have alternative paths to get into the exam. We heard earlier about the Mission Critical Operations Certificate and 4 to 6 months of work. And a lot of these, if you have the work experience, you can skip the 8-hour class that costs $3,000. And the same thing, if you can get the educational experience in a community college or university as well and take the exam. So the professional development courses are expensive. Yes, they are alphabet soup. And another thing is useful about these is there's a lot of professional development courses that you can go and take to help your instructors come up to speed, right? And even me, I just took a certified computer examiner course. In fact, we are trying to up our game in digital forensics, and actually all of our computer security faculty took a CCE course. And for us, it was most helpful in seeing sort of the practical side of what does a certified computer examiner do. And then it was a week-long 40-hour thing doing lab exercises, and a lot of those were directly applicable. We could grab that lab and take it into the classroom. So it's very useful, actually. I pulled this off the internet just looking at, it was from 2015. I gave you a link there, but somebody went out and did sort of a poll, or not really a poll. They scanned a bunch of job advertisements at different sites and looked at, for the different certificates, how many jobs are requiring them. And so you can see there's tens of thousands of jobs up there that are referencing certificates as what's required to get that job. And that's what's pushing our students to need these, right, or to get them. And you can use that, plus I try to give you a little, the entry level versus the advanced, Security Plus, Network Plus, those are the entry level. Even Network Plus in Huntsville, Huntsville City Schools has a, what do they call it, a college and career readiness curriculum, that one of them is cybersecurity, and those students can earn, or they get taught to the Network Plus curriculum, and they can take the Network Plus test after a 2-course sequence in high school. So that one's pretty early, but they go up from there. CISP, actually, the last one there, it requires multiple years of work experience before you can get into that. But you can kind of rank the, if you were trying to pick, I would just say, I mean, what my students talk about most is Security Plus and Certified Ethical Hacker and CISSP. You're going to go look at some of these and say what's in them, what common knowledge or what knowledge units do I need to grab from them. Those are the three I would start with. Moving on. As I mentioned, most of these require the student to pass an exam. That's how they get the certificate. But there are websites with a lot of training material for the students that we can draw from too. And there's practice exams we can draw from too. Especially, I mean, maybe some of those courses are relevant for your own. Some of those questions on those exams are relevant for your own exam questions. Just don't tell them where it came from, or they'll have a copy of the exam before you give it.
We can tweak.
Change in subjects. Gen Cyber is a NSA, NSF sponsored series of camps related to cybersecurity that are being offered throughout the country. It's a funded program that NSA puts out a call for proposals to run camps. And there's two types of camps that they offer. One is for teachers. UAH offered a teacher training last year, and we actually offered that for K through 12, but I think that we might have room if anyone was interested. It's a week-long 40-hour course. Yeah, 40-hour course, and the teachers at the high school level get CEH credit. I don't know if that's required at the community college level, but you know, where we actually introduce cybersecurity curriculum, and then we provide a CD. Well, the teachers do a lot of the lab exercises throughout the week, and then we give them a CD with materials that they can use in the classroom or modify and then use in the classroom. And then there's there's also high school and middle school camps. I don't know. I didn't look closely if y'all can apply to teach these or not, but you can definitely encourage students to, you know, send your own kids or something to these. I just wanted to mention Gen Cyber's out there. It's a program. What NSA is trying to do is encourage kids at the K through 12 level to major in cybersecurity. And the Gen Cyber website has a list of where the different camps are each year. They're all actually free. You have to get there usually. Some of them even have travel stipends to get you there. And every camp is different. The requirement is we have to address cybersecurity first principles. So a lot of them are computer science camps that have a kind of a core curriculum of cybersecurity added to it. They're doing things like Raspberry Pi I heard about earlier, and robotics and all kinds of stuff on top of the cybersecurity. But those are good programs to draw from, and I think that that your teachers may be interested in participating in the teacher camps as well. This is very, very short, but I wanted to encourage matriculation into UAH specifically. Nothing against the other schools, but we want your students. And so hopefully when you design your cybersecurity program, you leave you know, the Englishes, the calculuses, the humanities and things in there that are common to a first 2 years of college, so that they can transfer into a 4-year program and not have to start from scratch. We do have, so we want you to try to map to to the Bachelor of Science degrees, and I'll mention what those are, I think, on the next slide. And we do have some scholarship opportunities that I'll talk about. So cybersecurity at UAH, there's not, at the bachelor's level, there's not a cybersecurity degree. And that's something that a lot of schools are talking about, and there aren't very many cybersecurity degrees at the 4-year level. We're still sticking with the computer engineering, computer science, and information systems. And even, one of the things I wrote on what to expect at UAH is when you join a computer engineering program, that's a very broad topic area. Computer security is not going to come in until your senior year as an elective. It's not even required in the program. And the same is true with computer science. I think information systems, computer security is a little bit more infused. They're learning a little bit more practical IT type stuff in that program, in addition to the management information system stuff. But one of the things that concerns me, I have 2 kids. One is 12, and he's in middle school, and there's a middle school cybersecurity program at his school, and he, I think just probably wants to be like his dad, so he wants to take that. And he asked me, and then there's a high school one, so they're getting 6 years in secondary education of cybersecurity. Then you guys might have a cyber program, and a lot of kids are going to go through 2 years at community college before coming to the 4-year, getting more cybersecurity. And they get to us, and cybersecurity is pushed off into the master's or the senior year. And so actually one of the things I'm pushing MSU right now is to infuse cyber into all the other classes. We can't take digital design out of computer engineering. We can't take computer organization out of computer engineering. But those labs, and there's modules in there that we're trying to start. We've got a grant proposal under review to try to infuse cybersecurity throughout. Because when I told, my son asked me, he said, okay, I take cyber in the middle and then high school, and then what do I get to learn when I get to UAH? Because he's also, I'm going to UAH. And so I said, well, you're going to have to wait until your senior year, and his face just went, because he's excited, right? And so I want to get it pushed down. And y'all are doing good because you're having it in the first 2 years, but we got to push it down too. And so there's a lot actually we can learn from y'all about how to push it down.
Would you say that again?
Really heard that.
You want me to say that into the camera?
We have students. We have students listening.
All right.
Well, but would the 4-year institutions, for example, UAH, be amenable to setting up, working with us to develop, and then set up a statewide articulation so that any of our students, if they came through with our credentials, would be able to articulate in? Because you're right, they don't want to have to take these over again.
Right.
We don't want them to have to take it over.
Coming from the research side, it's really hard for me to answer that question. So I can give you an answer that might not be true.
Well, we are very interested in that. Let me put it that way.
Well, I know, and there's a lot of schools that reach out. At Mississippi State, I would hear, such and such wants to do matriculation. I think what ends up happening almost every time is you get handed a catalog and say, map to this. And
we want you at the table helping us pull it together.
And it's difficult. I mean, yes, I would like to engage. I mean, it gives me opportunities to do these capacity building grants like Jackson State is doing. And, I want Jackson State's industrial control system labs, and if y'all are developing curriculum, I want some of that to do it. I'm happy to share it back. So I don't mind engaging. Putting together a program that's a 2+2 or something like that, I really don't know how to do right now. So I don't know how to give you it.
We know how.
We know how.
But, I can tell you that UAH is 7,800 students right now, and the president has a goal to get to 10,000. And he's interested in individual student edition. If I can get one here, we added lacrosse, and I said, why did we add lacrosse? At a small school, I actually get to talk to the president every now and then. And he said, well, that's 60 students that are coming to play lacrosse. We're trying to get to 10,000. 60 is a good number. And then he said, I thought this was insightful, at 60 lacrosse players, and I'm going to get 20 or 30 more boyfriends and girlfriends as well. So, so he's interested in how do we grow our school. So I would say, in general, we want community college transfers to push our numbers up, but I don't want to commit to how to get there.
Sure. But you're absolutely right, because if you accept that student, then he's going to tell other folks.
Right.
So it mushrooms.
In addition to the engineering programs, or the 3-degree programs, sorry, only one's engineering, we have certificate programs that are available. So at the undergraduate level, you can earn a cybersecurity certificate, so you kind of have one extra credential with your degree. And those certificates map to a particular government standard, which I can't quote, but I mentioned earlier the students pursue these certificates to qualify for jobs. Our certificate is equivalent to like the Security Plus, a door opener. I think this is the last thing. There's the Cyber Core Scholarship for Service was already mentioned. And what that is a scholarship for students to study cybersecurity. It's multidisciplinary, so there are students that do this with all 3 of those degrees I mentioned before. And we're open to actually electrical engineering students and industrial engineering for sure, and broadening beyond that. At State we did electrical and industrial also. I'm too new at UAH to know exactly who all's in it. But the students, beyond getting a full scholarship with tuition and fees, they get a salary. So that's huge. And it's actually, for the undergraduate students, it's $20,000 for 9 months, which, and then there's a government, an internship required at a government agency, and so the students get paid for that too. So they come out of this making $25,000, $30,000, not come out of it. In the middle of this program, while they're going, they're making $25,000, $30,000 a year. Now there are...
That just shows you the need.
Yes.
That right there.
Well, that is because this program exists because there is a huge gap between the number of people that are needed and the number of people available. And this program is in NSF. I can tell you anecdotally, a couple of years ago, the Congress, when they fund items, they fund individual line items, and this is a line item in the budget, and it got plus up by $20 million a few years ago. And the guy that runs it, Victor Petrosky at NSF, was kind of flummoxed because suddenly he had $20 million that he needed to spend, and all his friends at NSF were apparently quite jealous that his program had grown by leaps and bounds. And he didn't even know who did it, what senator or what aide actually did this plus up. But there's a lot of support right now in the executive and congressional branches, and they're pushing these types of programs, and so you end up with something like this where there's a salary to go to school. And the salary is even better at the graduate level. I think it jumps to $30,000 for 9 months at the master's and PhD level. It's a 2-year scholarship. You have to be a junior or senior, which is perfect for someone coming in from a community college. I forgot your name, but Sneed State sent us one last year, I was told. So it is possible to get this scholarship coming directly from community college. Okay. UAH, I mentioned earlier. I'm not going to mention the other 2 again because I want them to come to UAH. But UAH is a cybersecurity school. There are a couple of others. You can go on this website, and you or the students can find, there's, I don't know, 50-ish schools in the nation that offer this program. I'm going to tell you, just at UAH, Mississippi State, we had 100% job placement in this program. So, and we are only in the first year of the program at UAH. So the first batch of graduates, we got 7 that will be graduating in May. we're not having problems getting job interviews, I'll tell you that. They do have to work for federal, local, state, or tribal government when they graduate, 1 year for every year of scholarship. But actually at Mississippi State, I can tell you they love that because it's kind of a guaranteed job.
Yeah.
When you win the scholarship, you had a job to go with it afterwards. They actually go, every January they're required, it's funded by their scholarship to go to Washington, D.C. for a job fair. And when you go into this job fair, it's sort of the, well, it's the who's who of all the government agencies, NSA, CIA, all that would, DHS, that would be interested in cyber. And then it's also all these DOD organizations you've never heard of, and they all give you a description. It's very interesting reading what these organizations do. But, cyber divides into offense and defense, and there's some offensive ones that show up too. But they go to that, and a lot of them have job offers or interviews. A lot of them that just they'll pull the students on the back of these kind of curtain things and interview them right there, and they'll have a job offer as they're walking out, or they'll have a job offer a week later. You know, it's a very successful program. It's the only scholarship. I mean, actually, I've heard a lot of anecdotally schools that are just like, what? I can't give a salary to a student. And so it's one of the only programs I've heard of like this at the undergraduate level. And then that was my last real slide. This is my contact information. When I was putting this together, I thought, you know, how do you develop a program? This is what came out. But I also forgot curriculum. I mean, not curriculum, I talked about that, but like actual labs and stuff. The stuff we give to the teachers, I've got a CD that if anybody wants it, it's a CD of classroom material and lab material, and I'm happy to share that with anybody. We gave it to high school teachers, but it's actually all the labs we offered in our first year class at Mississippi State. So it's definitely relevant to community college as well. And I'm happy to put that online, and you can just download it from a link if anybody wants it. Any questions?
Where would we go to download that?
Email me. I got my cards. I don't have it on like a website. I'll just put it on Google Drive and share it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. Wow. I was sitting there thinking, how do they carve a salary out of Edgar in the rule book on education grants? It's such a big no-no.
Well, Congress says they can do it.
Yeah, hey, go for it. Go for it. All right, well, our last presenter is one spooky guy, pardon the pun. But the really great part here is, okay, this is great. We learned this in a vacuum, but what does the real world look like? What are the threats that are out there? And how is this relevant to what we will see our students going into? And so that's why I'm very excited to have this speaker as well.
Well, thank you, Dave, Gene. You know, my hat's off to you for really building a diverse panel of presentations today. And I imagine some folks are going to go home and say, what in the world were they thinking about that last guy? All he's doing is keeping me awake at night. And, you know, I'm looking behind corners. And but it is, I guess, perhaps in some ways going to be a taste of the real world. Printers hate me because I don't make many copies of everything, to include business cards. I'm going to send this around, and if you would be interested in receiving the materials that I've got in here in electron, just put your business card or some way of reaching you, name, maybe phone number, and email address in there, and I'll be sure you get all of this stuff.
I did email this
okay.
to
okay.
all of our folks.
Okay, okay, great. Well, there are a few other items I've added in there since then, Dave, you might find interesting. If I could just speak just a moment, because Tommy and Guillermo and a few other folks have talked about this accreditation. And this is what it looks like, National Security Agency and DHS. Our center was built before I left active duty. As a matter of fact, I was overseas when all the heavy lifting was going on. I got back, retired from the Army and just kind of fell in on it. So I certainly can't take any credit for that. But the very first thing that we did when I joined, and then my boss, the commanding general of Defense Intelligence Agency, Ron Burgess, when he was repatriated to his alma mater, Auburn, is we said, look, we need to put together something in the way of a consortium. And I'm thinking, because of ACCS, you guys already have one. So I mentioned this to you. And so we took the then 7, but now 8 PhD granting institutions in the state, and we developed, you can imagine this, an articulation agreement among, I was told we can't get people on the same campus to agree. If you can imagine getting 7 campuses to agree, the Alabama Cyber Research Consortium, and it has paid off big, big dividends for us. For instance, even if we thought we could afford to duplicate research and curricula development, it wouldn't make any sense to. For instance, in Tommy's presentation, remember the mug book of faces up there? In the your upper right was Dr. Ray Vaughn. He came from Mississippi State. Maybe he was there when you were there. Also another retired Army colonel. He has done such a great job and brought most of this with him to UAH in SCADA and in the Service for Scholarship. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for us at UAB or Tuscaloosa to replicate that, when now with the benefit of distance learning we can it doesn't make sense for any of us to have, as I mentioned today, Spanish 101 being taught simultaneously on 8 different campuses at 20% fill. And so I strongly encourage the 2-year program, community college especially, to be thinking about those sorts of kind of divide and conquer maybe. Now, I'm just going to confess my ignorance right up front about the community college program. But my supposition is, from some of the things that have come up, is that, yeah, you've got to be focused on matriculation. That's a big, big goal. But a lot of folks are not going to matriculate. And so you want to, it would seem to me, in your curricula development and in your counseling and guidance, you want to prepare them so that if suddenly, the stars do align and they can go on fine. What about those folks that are really looking to either add to their credential in an employed setting and or to prepare them to get the best job they can after they complete their 2-year program? With that being said, I think in many ways you folks have an edge on the 4-year institutions in that, for me, there should be at least, a so much stronger emphasis on the experiential piece. In the 4-year program, we're told that if we bring experiential, bring the world to the classroom, you're making it look like a, quote, trade school. You may get the same criticism. But another is that it would seem to me you folks have perhaps more of a regional audience. And so maybe, yeah, it's important to see what employers nationwide are looking for in the way of curricular development, what you call it, what the bells and whistles look like. I would really encourage you to go to the major employers in your areas, in your backyard. Go to those CIOs, those CSSOs, and ask them, what are the skills that you're having a difficult time staffing with your cyber folks?
We require all of our programs to have an advisory committee.
Great.
And those would be the perfect people.
Exactly. Exactly. And they love getting out there, because if they get out there, they know they'll get first dibs on your best students. Facebook taught us that. I mean, yeah.
Y'all hear that? Y'all heard that?
Yeah. Facebook. This was just before I got there in mid 2012. I mean, I was really fresh off the airplane from Afghanistan, and what happened was Facebook realized they'd grown far more rapidly than their capacity to protect their clients. And so they heard Gary Warner, our director of digital forensics, computer science, speak at some conference somewhere. He took a team of grad students, went out there, helped them solve their problems. They ended up being able to settle out of court with some of the people that were extorting information and money from their clients. And they called us one day, and I'm sure it was set up from the beginning. Conference call, Zuck and Cheryl and all those folks at Facebook that say, well, those, Zuck's very colorful language, those folks settled out of court, and then we got this money. It just feels like blood money. you have any idea what we ought to do with it? Again, as a setup from the beginning. Somebody in the background said, don't you guys have a 4th floor that needs to be built out? Well, almost $3 million later, and I'll show you some pictures, they came in and built out our cyber lab. And the very first thing I tell people when they walk in there is, ladies and gentlemen, there are no Alabama taxpayer dollars invested anywhere. When you see the picture, you see it looks like absolutely nothing like anything I saw in 30 years in the intelligence community. But those are some things that I think you folks may have a unique niche. And it probably warrants some exploration, or at least some discussion. And I'd love to have a chance to do that with you. Okay, let's see here. I guess I probably advance to the right. Now, I mentioned here insider threat and social media. In my 30 years in the intelligence community, there are 2 threat vectors I have yet to find any government agency, any business enterprise, any institution that's cracked the code on it, is these 2. The insider threat, the Edward Snowdens, the Robert Hansons, the Aldrich Ames, the Bradley, and now I guess Chelsea Mannings. Those people that do placement and access are put in unique positions of trust. And for whatever their motivation, they betray that trust. The second is what we're going to talk about today is social media. Now, why did I choose that? And talking this over with Dave, Dave said, okay, look, John, you're batting cleanup here. You know, you're 4th in the lineup. We need to contextualize, put some of this in sort of a perspective that these people can go back and really put it to work. Social media, folks, is something that is like the law. It touches every one of us. You might say to yourself, I don't have anything to do with social media. Social media doesn't have anything to do with me. I would submit to you that is a very naive attitude. And so if nothing else, I hope I can convince you, and perhaps the students especially that are listening, because the very young and the very old are the most vulnerable and the most targeted and exploited with social media. So having to choose between the 2 in a limited time, that's what Dave and I agreed to focus in on. All that says is that this is a unique discussion. I really hope it is dialogue, because we are batting cleanup here, and there may be some things that, you know, other folks, Mitch, Guillermo, Tommy, others have brought up that, you know, you may want to go back and revisit. I'm here until one or both of these guys who are a lot bigger than I am throw me out. So that's one of the advantages of being retired. But at UAB, our president is very fond of saying, we exist for 3 reasons: research, education, and support to the community. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm checking all 3 boxes. So I'm here until you guys run me home. A little bit about me. 30 years in the community. 1/3 of my 30 years in Army Special Forces. And they tell you, if you ever become Green Beret, you'll never make journal officer. I proved the point. I thought I was giving Eisenhower a run for the record as a full colonel. But another 1/3 as special agent, Army counterintelligence. And then a 1/3 trying to convince the intelligence community I'm an operator, not administrator. They kept putting me in charge of stuff. And so I decided on that long plane ride home in 2012 that it was time for me to hang it up. But I tell you what really put me over the edge, and it was this. And it is that I could see from my perch in the ISAF headquarters, the NATO headquarters in Kabul, bad guys downtown that were evading justice in the fledgling Afghan criminal justice system because they didn't have the evidence to convict, and I knew I had the evidence sitting in my classified holdings to put that person where they belong. So I made a decision to myself, and a few other motivational factors, is that I'm going to go home, retire, and I'm going to look for a way to legally, morally, and ethically bring as many of those tactics, techniques, and procedures that you and me, the taxpayer, paid the R&D cost, the heavy lifting, that if we don't do this, they're just going to reside in the classified domain, and you and I will never really be able to benefit from it. To bring as many of those out into the light of day as possible, so we'll make the world a better and a safer place. So that's my mission statement, if you will, in a nutshell. And as I was telling Dave, you know, people who still have access to classified information, we are the most boring dull people you will ever meet at a cocktail party. Because when someone says, well, what do you think about the Super Bowl? You know, we're going through a source and methods deconfliction process, and by the time we come up with an answer, you've walked off. I don't know what's going on with that guy. So, but much of what I do is use these proven tactics, techniques, and procedures, but use them in the benefit of the social and behavioral aspect of cybersecurity. Now, I am not a techie. I'm probably the only person in the room that does not have a technical degree. I'm the one guy in the faculty that says, what about the human factor? Of course, the IT guys just want to throw stuff at me. You know, humans, gosh, do we have to deal with those? No, I'll say to you folks, no matter how convinced you are that you have the most foolproof ones and zeros cyber network defense, an attacker like me won't even bother to penetrate that. And Joy, I appreciate you investing all those resources in that. We're not going to go in that route. We're going to exploit some human vulnerability every time, and we've been very successful as an attacker community. So drive on with your whiz bang ones and zeros. We'll see you at the well. Well, Internet of Things. I mean, this is an audience I know I don't have to tell how much all of this is impacting every moment of our day and everything we do and the people that are most important to us. Are any of these immune? Whoops. But bring that back. Are any of these immune to social media? I hope that I convince you today that there is not a one up there that if I choose to use that as the vector for penetration of your security, your sense of, hey, I'm above reproach here as an attacker. Matter of fact, I'll let you choose. And I'll come up with a means of penetrating that. Just as the director of the Central Intelligence Agency found out day before yesterday. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you may just want to pick up a newspaper, because if you drill down deep enough, as a matter of fact, I've given you an article there where, and I see this gentleman in the blue just opened it, our business community has realized the tremendous potential for social media to break down those stovepipes and those efforts to channelize traffic, to keep them over here and to keep these folks over here, to just level that playing field across cultural, education, religious, racial. All of those discriminators are going by the board. So just as I always did before I sent anybody overseas in an operational capacity, I said the first thing you got to do, Bob or Sally, is stop thinking like an American. Just pause for a minute and think how tough that is. Have that out-of-body experience. You're going to cut your steak with your right hand or your left? You're going to spear your food with fork up or fork down? These are the things that get people in my former line of work caught, arrested, tortured, and ultimately never to be seen or heard from again. I say that to you because many of you, I think, and I envy you a little bit in this, you'll be preparing the cyber warriors of tomorrow. And that legacy that you leave behind you will be built upon for the next generation. And so anything I can do that I can bring back from the battle space and share with you or with your colleagues or with your students from the real world, the greater my self-satisfaction that maybe I can make a difference I'll never know about. Time will tell. So what do we want to look at today? This thing called cyber defense, cyber analytics in the context of social media. An absolutely exploding body of law. Well, the law will always be a step behind technology. There are several. We have 2 labs in our building that are not accessible to the public. One is our digital cyber lab, and the other is our courtroom. You might say, why would a cyber center need a courtroom? Well, the fact of the matter is that when we gather evidence, and we're able to analyze it using cutting-edge technology people like Tommy and Guillermo and others develop for us, we've got to train that case agent how to do it, what to do with it, how to collect it, how to preserve it. We've got to then train that prosecutor or assistant U.S. attorney as how to present it. And then we've got to train the judge what to do with it, how do you rule on this stuff. So we'll use the courtroom through sometimes classified, more often than not, closed-circuit TV, and we'll communicate with that case agent and that prosecutor somewhere. And once we get, and the students are doing the role playing under very, very strict non-disclosure agreements. The students are doing the role playing as the attorney, the prosecuting attorney, the defense attorney, the witness that's on the stand, and the judge. They're learning from the process, and then we finally get to the point the way they want it. We package it up and send it to them. In the time. You know, I have to say, I mean, I don't have kids or family. I guess if you figure the Army ever wanted me to have those things, they would have issued them to me. 6.5 hours in Facebook a day. I have to ask, what did you do before you had this stuff? I don't know how people find the time. I can't, because it could potentially compromise my security clearance. But I would submit many of you who have people who are very important to you, spouses, children, parents, whatever, and especially many of you who have students, are so involved in this phenomenon that it is beyond scary. And I will go through this quickly. As I mentioned, robust area of the law. Look at the subscription rates here. 900 million, 820 million. You know, if Facebook were a country, it'd be the third largest. That'd be a rather strange population from what I've seen, because again, they are a client of mine. But it is presented in such an attractive, appealing package. Oh, this is so great. You can reach out and touch people around the world. But what about the people that you think you know, but you really don't? You've really only seen maybe one small optic into who that person is. What are they really like? What if they pull off that mask that you see through encounters on social media? What are they really up to? Really what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is a threat. Now that's a term I've heard everybody throw around here that's spoken so far. How do you define a threat? What's a threat? Anybody?
Something that disrupts.
Disrupts? In the context of my world, there are two quintessential ingredients for anything to truly be a threat. It must be a clear demonstration of both intent and capability to do harm. Merely intent is not sufficient. Iran has made no mystery of the fact that as soon as they get nuclear deliverable payload capability, their goal is to annihilate Israel, and then depending upon which day of the week, the United States. So why are we so concerned about nuclear proliferation? That, as Malcolm Gladwell would say, is the tipping point. Capabilities without intention, on the other hand, that's not a threat. Israel has the nuclear arsenal that could destroy the United States many times over. They've demonstrated no indication of any appetite to do that. We don't consider them a threat. Now, that doesn't mean they don't spy on us and we don't spy on them, but nonetheless, that's what you need for a threat. And until and unless you get your technically trained people to begin thinking threat, they'll never cross that divide. They'll continue to do great work in basic science, new research and development, curricular development, rollout, and again, they'll be living in that white hairnet lab coat environment. And I hate to tell them, there's a world out there that don't look like you. And the systems that you are designing, Siemens for Stuxnet, have motivations that when you're forewarned, you've got to be forearmed. And the only way you can do that is to anticipate and direct. So it's all about the threat. Again, make it so attractive and appealing. She's so excited. She's got this new way of reaching out. She doesn't have to, put on makeup. She can keep her house shoes on, and she's out there engaging in the world. But it really is kind of a peeking between the fingers. What is that person really like on the other side of this? And she probably hopes that some young man, that looks rather industrious and someone she would really like to get to know. But what if it rather looks something like this? Now, those are the cases that I get involved in. All those that's not, I rarely ever hear about. There is a bit of masking going on. And some of it is not always malicious. If people are going to embellish their resumes to get jobs in faculties of universities, you think they're going to embellish their bona fides to get a date? You're looking at me like, I know there's a generational divide here with some of you, but it's not that big. There really is a bit of trust and handshake, and you don't even see the hand coming through that machine. It is a bit of a tightrope act. And beware of those that say, I'm Facebook, and I know this sounds blasphemous, it's $3 million. I'm Facebook, you can go to sleep at night with our privacy policy. We are the social media experts. Beware. Beware. At the end of the day, it's a business. So what has this tremendous attractiveness to particularly our culture? Americans, and if you've traveled much overseas, I think you would agree with this, Americans love things that challenge them intellectually, solving puzzles. If you get on the aircraft flying from Stuttgart to Atlanta, how many people do you see doing Sudoku, whatever that thing is? And then when you take the return trip back, it is completely different. Think about it. Those are intelligence indicators that the cultural emphasis is very different. In our culture, we look at anything and we look past or beyond or around the potential downside consequences and fall victim to our own wants and vulnerabilities. But more often than not, is it that? Or is it something that looks like a lit bomb merely wrapped in the shape of a keyboard? Hospitals, treasure troves. We have a huge medical center. UAB, largest employer in the state, close to 20,000 students now. President's fond of saying that of the 198 some odd countries that the UN recognizes as a sovereign, we've got faculty, staff, or student in like 180 of them. I mean, the most diverse group of people you'll ever run into. And you know what sells the most? Classes on social media. The appetite among our people to know more, to want to be able to one-up the person sitting next to them, or their significant other, or their ex, is just absolutely phenomenal. There is an addiction that is growing here, and it is, I am told, and when you look under the hood, ladies and gentlemen, and you see the data that we're seeing, I do not exaggerate when I say that the social, the psychological, and behavioral attraction of social media in the right age strata and cultural target audience is more addictive than any chemical known to man. Now stop and think about that. Nicotine, painkillers, and what we see people doing to preserve. Sounds terribly sexist, and I apologize because it is, but I will see women students dragging a book bag that I know must weigh 80 pounds on one shoulder so they can have one hand on this just in case something comes across. And when you ask them why, they say, well, it might be important. Some of our professors declare, and I'm sure it's probably true on your campuses too, a technology-free zone during class. Well, when one of those classes opens and the students are bailing out, you've got to get up against the wall because those students will stumble over one another to catch up on what they've missed for the last 50 minutes. They have no idea they're running, stampeding over one another. It is absolutely phenomenal. We have rehab centers now for the recovering connected one. Our evolution, we've added one, the evolutionary cycle. Any anthropologists? No, that's right. You guys are all techies. That's right. And then this is where I come in because I have, in my entire professional career, no matter what I was doing, I've never found anything so intriguing as the workings of the human mind. And if you ever become a student of human behavior and the workings of the mind, you just reach a point you cannot be satisfied to fully understand things looking through your rearview mirror. You've got to flip that over and say, I should have seen that. I should have been able to predict that. What are the indications? What are the indications of warnings? What did I miss in terms of predictive analysis? And again, that's the missing link for most people. It's contrary to our culture. We don't want to think bad things about people. We want to think the best. How many of us were told if you can't say anything good about somebody, don't say anything at all? It's just part of our DNA. Well, can we look to our senior law enforcement? I'm going to go through this quickly. The FBI, James Comey, know him well. He's a great guy, the director of FBI. If he was standing here next to me, he would say to you, yeah, what John's saying is right. We do all this stuff, and we in the FBI still have not figured out what our lane in the road for cyber is. And especially is that true in the area of social media. You know, you may say, well, what is the cybersecurity mission for the FBI? It's pretty strategic. The fact of the matter is for cyber network defense, if your credentials end in .gov, .gov, or .mil, you got somebody that's watching over you. I won't say doing it well, because I got that letter from OPM that said, congratulations, you won the lottery. You know, your PII is out there open bidder on the dark web. Just hope the bids won't be particularly high. This is the data breach of OPM records. They started off with the operators first. I mean, these guys knew what they were doing. They started off with the operators, the intel community first, and grabbed those, and then went down their priority of needs. It's just not there, folks. What the FBI is trying to do is to look for some way to cross-pollinate. Okay, what do our street agents know? Well, what's their culture? Bank robberies. Well, maybe we can get them interested and involved from, living and breathing the gun culture of the FBI to maybe now getting into cyber. And there is definitely a fraud scenario whereby all things cyber are used to rob banks. But it bears no resemblance to the kinetic counterpart, where somebody walks in with a gun and says to the teller, give me all your money. So, where does that leave us as educators, as community leaders? Let's get back to the basics. I mentioned to you that threat is defined as the convergence of hostile intent and hostile capability. That worked pretty well from the psychological and the organizational institutional piece. What we're finding now is there's a third component coming in, really a cultural influence that says, do I have the will to engage these capabilities to carry out my intent. Best example of that, Congress. Say Congress. You know, you get the congressman in front of the talking head on the 6 o'clock news. Why won't you folks get handle on the budget? Well, they will give you every excuse known to man or beast as to why their adversaries, partisan-wise or other, are standing in their way and why they are unable, with the influence they have as a minority party, let's say, to get anything through. And then when they're asked the question, well, Senator, what are you doing to change that? You know, we in government are taught never answer those questions directly. You always oblique and redirect those questions. But that is the example of what we're seeing, and that's especially true in the social media. Because the fact of the matter is, most attackers in social media have little appreciation for the arsenal at their disposal. Most attackers in social media have little appreciation for the arsenal at their disposal. And what do social media attackers do? If I attempt to convince this young lady to strike up a relationship with me, provide me PII information that I can go and open bank accounts and credit cards and that kind of thing, and then suddenly she says, no, I'm breaking it off. You think I'm going to try to talk her into it? I'll just veer off to the next softest target. I don't need to penetrate your hardened defenses. All I need to do is to come up with soft. Yeah, right. You know, when I first got there and I joined the lab with Gary Warner, he was showing me some examples of malware. And he showed me one that was really crude. I mean, you know, it didn't really fit the page. It had misspelled words, and I thought, Gary, what idiot, you know, third grader put this together and think they would fool anybody? He said, no, John. Think like the attacker. And when people normally get malware, they say, oh my goodness, I'm being singled out. Those go out to millions, if not billions, at the same time. And so what are the attackers looking for? Are they looking for the sophisticated PhD in electrical engineering? They're looking for that group of folks that they can most easily exploit. And they want the ones that will fall for that poorest example of malware. Because they know they can take those folks all the way to the cleaners and back again. That's what I mean by trying to inspire that out-of-body experience to not become a bad guy, but if you're going to be responsible for making a system more resilient in the face of cyber threat, particularly in social media, you got to at least approach it from the standpoint, how would an attacker go about it? So with insider threat, and we've, I think Mitch mentioned target, we've got the attacker, the target, and more often than not, target, no pun on word, is not the target. The target store was merely a conduit to what? All that credit card data. Now, and who really, the guy who gets the credit card statement and suddenly there are charges on there, he has no idea. That is the true victim. As I say, when you work for Walmart, you don't work for Target. I was sitting in the Fusion Center at Walmart in early November of 2013. I remember that because just like this weekend, it was the weekend that Auburn was playing Arkansas. So I finagled it so I could stay over that Friday night and go to the game the next day, playing there at Arkansas. So it sticks in my mind. Well, when I got there in early November of 2013, they had already gotten word about the Target breach at Walmart. They said, here's the key. Here's the key. Not how did it happen and, you know, who's going to blame who, is how do they respond to it. And more importantly is, do they divulge it now or do they wait until after Black Friday? And what did they do? Waited until after Black Friday. And as a result, they lost their CEO, their CIO, shuttered every store they own in Canada, or owned in Canada, and there are at least by my last count, 3 different U.S. Justice Department investigations underway right now. It will probably result in criminal indictments. Now, a lot of people say that's not insider threat. Yeah. That bad decision at the C-suite upstairs, and particularly for those lifelong employees at Target who their stock continues to go. Well, that's what we have in the insider threat. How does that compare with social media? Very different paradigm. If Apple is the target, the true victim is that innocent social media person that has some need that he or she believes can be met through this risky behavior. And I'm going to give you some things to look for that the data is telling us are the early indications and warnings that you need to be on the lookout for among the people that are important to you. Because the patterns and the trends are beginning to emerge. The list grows. I'm just going to go through some research here. This is a project I'm doing with the University of Arkansas. I mentioned that I'm out there so much with Walmart, it just makes perfect sense. And this, the prospectus of this is in that group. So if you put your business card or your contact data in that portfolio going around, I'll be sure and send it to you. I was most interested in this because coming from my background, my portion of the research assignment was to build the procedural and evidentiary guidelines for law enforcement prosecutors in the context of social media. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is if I have anything to offer you the price of admission, this is it. As I go through this list of 10 progressive steps of symptoms, indications, and warnings, if you think of someone that is important to you and they're beginning to demonstrate one or more of these characteristics, and by the way, I see some of you writing them down, and I think Dave's plan is to share the slides or post them somewhere, so you should have this at some point. But the first one is an increased awareness and savviness. Suddenly, you know, they're spending more time on the computer. They seem to be more up on things. Then you see uncharacteristic, anomalous behavior that suggests a dominance, a need to control things that maybe had never really been there before. And cyberbullying, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion that we just don't have time to get into today. I've got a number of our grad students that are working this piece right now. You know, it just scares me. The withdrawal from the traditional support groups like church, sports, family, etc. Uncharacteristically adolescent risky behavior. I know you can't see some of these in the back. Adult activity role playing and modeling to try to behave and look like people that are many years their seniors. Smoking, shoplifting, driving recklessly. You see changes in their reward center motivation. And in psychology, we look for, you know, the old Pavlov's dog. For every stimulus, what is the response? And what reward? Because if I can mute that reward motivation, regardless of the stimulus, regardless of what enticement I put that out there in front of someone, they'll be less prone to go for it. Hypersensitivity to some immediate or short-term reward. Suddenly, when these folks reach this stage of the radicalization profile, everything draws down to the minute. You're not thinking ahead. You're not thinking about next week. You're not thinking about what happens after this exam. It's like their peripheral vision is cocooning on. And we're very near critical mass here, folks. Ever increasing risky and thrill-seeking behaviors surround themselves with others similarly self-justified. And then self-actualization of those 1 through 9 in radically uncharacteristic behavior in group settings, heretofore, now they do it individually. Ladies and gentlemen, this format fits every one of these lone attackers that have gone into schools have gone into shopping malls, have gone into churches, and just start blasting away. The data is there. Help me get the word out. And nowhere are the victims more vulnerable than in social media. You know, no one's going to shoot you through that blasting machine, if they haven't figured out a way to do that yet. But if they convince you to empty your savings account, to do all these things that are completely uncharacteristic for you, and we put this information in front of the victim afterwards, and they are absolutely stymied. They can't believe they said that or did that. No, that wasn't me. And then oftentimes we will say, well, here's the person you've been corresponding with. And they'll read it and say, no, that can't be him. No, I know him. This can't be him. It's like an abused child taking up for the abusing parent. You see, you're wondering why Dave invited me to close this. You're all going to sleep with the lights on tonight.
But you made mention about addictive, but you see that one.
Oh yeah, and this is just a graphic, ladies and gentlemen. I built this when I was overseas, and the intersecting vectors down here in the green-blue range are just our daily communications, interactions, etc. We all want to stay down in here. But the very first victim in any kind of investigation, whether it's social media or insider threat, the very first victim is objectivity. That in-house CIO, that in-house CSSO, they're going to say, oh, wait a minute, John. I'll ask the question that you can ask from the outside. Why did this happen? Or why do you do it this way? And the answer I'll get is, oh, I can understand why you're concerned about that, but that's old Fred. He falls out of his chair this time of day every day. We don't take it seriously. And I'm thinking, wow, could that be a probing attack in disguise? And so these are just a few, and the time will permit, some of the instincts I hope that you will begin to impart to your students. Because you, in providing them these technical skills, you are giving them keys to locks beyond their wildest imagination. Let's just hope that we can inspire them to use it for good and not for something else. And then if you align that vertically, you can see that 1 through 10 inverts. 1 is down here and 10 is up in the red zone. It just, some people relate well to text, some relate well to graphics. And the most recent examples of this that we are exposed to every day, and I will not translate that for you from Urdu, and ISIS is every state in the United States has one or more ongoing investigations into recruiting for ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, Boko Haram. It's absolutely phenomenal. And the people that go and fall victim to that, the one common refrain, I can't believe it. I've known that kid, that guy, that gal all my life. And they are the last person I thought would ever drop off the grid and then show up in Turkey or in Erbil or in Damascus. And this is the #1 screening tool that those recruiters use. People that use these tools to express some inner need for lascivious behavior and sexting. If I'm an attacker and I'm looking to recruit people with vulnerabilities, man, those folks are going to pop on my screen right away. And I'm going to help them feed that fetish until I can find out if A, they're an investigator in victims' clothing, or B, there is a person, a resource here that I can exploit. Sexting provides a weaponization platform. This is that research grant item that is in the
folder. Rather than copies on the table, I just invite you to let me know and I will get it to you. I'm going to close with this. Keep remembering to stay in front of the camera. Really what we're talking about here, advertisers would tell us, are eyeballs, attention. And we've got several great examples of how to influence people. Advertising is one, where you're just going to buy it. Another is you're going to beg for it. You know, your PR folks, bless their hearts, you know, they have to go out and be all things to all people. You can bug people to death. I went on a car lot yesterday, and I bet before I got out of my car, my car was having some recall work done, so I just thought I would walk through the new car lot. You know, I thought I was having to kick them off my feet. They were just in droves like gnats flying around. But here's the one that everybody in this room needs to think about. And Americans are uniquely vulnerable to this phenomenon. If it's free, it's for me. How many of you heard that? So, in summary, people say to me, well, John, what do I need to do after you've given me this, you know, shock and horror story? First of all, don't cross-pollinate platforms. If you want to do financial banking over the internet, fine. Go down to Best Buy, buy a computer, hook it up to some sort of landline, use it for that purpose, code it where it doesn't accept any cookies, and when you're done, turn it off and unplug it. But the greatest vulnerability is people who do their social media, their banking, their entire life story. Because you see, just like the target attacker, I won't bother to attack the things that Apple put in here. I'll go through the things you put there, Mr. and Ms. Victim, through social media. And then once I get inside, it's just, you know, candy store. So here's what I recommend everybody to think about doing. Monitor everything. In the Army, we say you can expect what you inspect. You're not asking somebody how they're doing on this or that. Don't be surprised if a few weeks from now that ends up getting you or somebody called to the principal's office. Consume threat intelligence. Now, you don't, I'm sure what I've shared with you guys today, most of you I'm meeting for the first time, I'm sure what I have said to you is not going to land me on your Christmas card mailing list. Most people don't like to even acknowledge that people like John have to exist. I can understand. But regardless how you feel about me, when I collect the data and I put the lessons learned out there, please, please, at least give it some thought. I would hate for you to be in a position that a defense attorney is in when he or she fights like hell to get their defendant acquitted, and the next day they pick up the paper and see what? That defendant has killed or raped somebody on the street. And lastly, integrate across all domains. In that consortium that I mentioned, it is really interesting to see the way that universities, PhD granting institutions get to cyber. University of South Alabama, strong mathematics approach. Auburn, almost pure engineering approach to cyber. UAH, some of both. Tuscaloosa, almost completely humanities. UAB, ours, and again, I can't take any credit for this, is merging all things criminal justice with all things forensic. In our lab, in our building, you'll see the third floor, well, second floor is the courtroom. Third floor, and all of our criminologists and those guys. Third floor are our natural science forensics, forensic biology, forensic chemistry. And then fourth floor is the digital forensics. Our program, unlike any other that I know of, brings together all things forensic. So we are getting closer and closer to that minority report scenario where Mitch may say, no, John, that wasn't me. And from the surrounding facts and circumstances and the evidence that are left behind, I'm able to make a compelling and persuasive case that, yep, it is, and here's what we have. Now, that's our approach to cyber. And it's great. I wouldn't want us to be carbon copies of one another. Okay, how does that relate down to ACCS? You folks may want to think about some regional specialization. I don't know. But it just seems like, to me, in some ways, a two-year curricula, you've got some flexibilities and maybe some external influences that we don't have in the four-year undergrad and the graduate program. So just for what that's worth. I know I'm about to overstay my welcome. Oh gosh, I don't want to overstay my welcome on the first visit. Yeah, a number of the people in here, not all, could probably tell you they remember where they were and what they were doing when they learned that Kennedy was shot. No, I'm really dating myself there. The next is they can tell you where they were and what they were doing when they heard that bin Laden had been killed. What I can share with you about that is when you woke up here in the States 1 May and learned that that had happened the night before, it was already 2 May in Afghanistan. That's where I was. In a little compound right inside the Afghan-Pakistan border. It's where we assemble the team. For intel guys, all we do is prep them, try to answer any question they come up with about actions on the objective, actions en route, recovery, evasion, escape, etc. And so once those helicopters clear the horizon, all we can do is go and monitor our sensor equipment in the intel world, looking for any evidence of mission compromise. And so we're sitting there, and I'm at the console as a senior intelligence officer, and one of my analysts almost falls out of his chair. He says, "Contact, local neighborhood," and it was this tweet. You've seen the pictures of President Obama sitting there in his leather jacket. He's surrounded by Gates and Panetta and Clinton and a number of other staffers in the National Command Authority while the operation is going on. The one guy, the Air Force there, that's sitting in uniform at the head of the table, he's communicating with me in Jalalabad, Afghanistan. My guy said, this could be the first evidence of mission compromise. I said, no, we resist the temptation to act on a single piece of uncorroborated information. So I said, let's report it, but let's recommend no change in mission profile to see if it's picked up on by anybody, see if it's retweeted. That was the longest 2 minutes of my life, folks. But once that had expired, we brought up the National Command Authorities, and they were asking for our recommendation on the ground. We said, because radio silence, we could not communicate with the teams on the objective, is no evidence of retweet, recommend Charlie Mike continue mission. Now, what this person heard, and was living in the neighborhood near the Abbottabad compound, traveling salesman, up late that night doing his expense report, heard a loud boom. He said, I heard helicopters and I heard a loud boom. They just tweeted, is anything going on in the neighborhood? If you may remember from unclassified accounts of that night, Trident Spear, one of our 2 Black Hawk helicopters went in hard, and it was declared non-airworthy for exfil, and so they had to detonate it in place. That's the boom he heard. Had we taken an overly cautious posture and said recommend exfil, mission aboard, bin Laden was already dead. We didn't know that at the time, but we would have lost that tremendous treasure trove of intelligence information that was gathered by virtue of allowing those Navy SEALs to continue to collect that. And we got our folks out of there. I simply share with you that anyone want to say social media is only for some and have no impact on others. This is our Facebook suite. This is the digital lab. We were told they wanted it to look like Silicon Valley of the South. That's where I say there are no Alabama taxpayer dollars invested here anywhere. And that's my contact data. So Dave, I apologize, I ran over, but do we have any time for any questions? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Please, any. And like I said, I would be glad to stick around. My content is that a lot of people say, you know, I'd like to ask a question, but I'm not going to do it in front of these guys. Yeah, so I know to stick around afterwards. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I need some feedback from everybody about this, and to the folks that are viewing through GoToMeeting, I'll be sending out a feedback form, and would appreciate any that we can get. We always want to improve, though that's hard to imagine right now. This was an outstanding presentation. All of our presenters, thank you very much. We have a world of work to do, and in the interest of time, we'll not go into a lot, but I'd like to hear back from everybody, and not on this report. What do you think next steps ought to be? One that came to mind immediately is I'd kind of like to see for lack of a better term, a cybersecurity education consortium, to where those of you who teach in this area specifically, you're going to be more absorbed with it than maybe some of the others, and so you can get together and we can partner with some of these other organizations, higher education as well, and share some resources and then use that to develop that out. So very interested in that. But again, I want to hand these out real quick and get some feedback from everybody. James, would you pass those down, please? And if you would, just leave them on the table, and we'll gather them up. Thank you very much for attending this. It's been great, and we'll get better as we go. These are the kind of things we like to do. So thank you very much. Yes, sir.